Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I am your host, Joe Neerman, aka Good Lawgic. Hope you had a great day today. I want to start off the show tonight by apologizing for the very odd and peculiar vampire hours that I'm keeping right now. I'll share with you that the reason for that is that I got like only a couple hours sleep last night, and I had to be up for court this morning. Believe it or not, it's true. So, so I was running on just a couple hours sleep, and around 7 o'clock, I just fell in my bed and crashed for till Lady Logic woke me up and asked me if I'm streaming tonight, and that was at 10:15. So then I got to work. Anyhow. So I apologize for that, but we have a great show for you tonight. First and foremost, obviously, I'm going to break down for you the follow-up to that story. Yes, I'll give you locals chat. I apologize for that. Ugh, God, I'm not myself. You are correct, though. I need to give you a locals chat. Why don't I see what happened to my locals? Oh, gosh, I'm such a mess today. Did I not? I didn't put this out on locals? Oh my God, I'm such an idiot. I didn't even put this on locals? Mess. Humiliating. The heck is wrong with me? Yeah, wait, I need to remedy that. I apologize. God. Something was wrong. That would explain so much. It explains so much. It explains why no one heard about this. It really explains a lot. Thank you, JH. You're awesome. Definitely need to remedy this. Copy. Paste. Let me put the Rumble link in here. Copy. No, that's not what I want. Copy. Copy and paste. Copy. Paste. Publish. And now we go to locals and open your chat up. I really appreciate you calling that to my attention, JH. Thank you very much. Such an idiot. Well, where was we? Yes. Well, we're going to see that Fani botched that case even worse than I botched tonight's stream, and she is now gone. Finito. Adios. Has no opportunity. Rejected in the highest court in her land and told, "You're done here. Go home." That Fani is bounced. Consider her bounced and bounced out. All her dreams of how she's going to get, they all went up in smoke. I also want to cover how the prosecutor for Utah basically has destroyed the narrative from the left that they're desperately trying to pitch out there to anyone who still believes them, that Tyler Robinson is one of theirs. He's one of theirs. Well, that was laid to rest by the prosecutor today with some of the allegations that were brought forward and laid bare in hard evidence that we expect to be presented at trial if he doesn't plead out. So, and to find a way to plead out, we're going to talk a little bit. I plan on covering the prosecutor's explanation of that, and also looking at some people from the left. And we also want to cover for that Kash Patel basically went bananas on the Senate today. Perhaps one of the hottest exchanges between witness and senator I think I've ever seen. It was pretty hot. So I definitely plan on reviewing that with you guys. And we have a goal up there. Our goal is, if we hit our nightly goal of 15 super chats, a yellow or higher, means $10 or more. If you're in Rumble land, you might think yellow is $5 because they have like a funkier type of coloring system there. But yes, it is $10 or more. 15 super chats. Presto bingo. I'm going to give you a half hour of other material, not Charlie Kirk related, because basically after Fani Willis, everything here is Charlie Kirk related. Also, I forgot to mention George Zinn was in the news today, and he's the old elderly man who was briefly detained by the police moments after the Charlie Kirk shooting. He was back in the news today. Definitely want to talk a little about that. But we're going to start off tonight by discussing the oh, look at them. Look at you guys. You guys really, despite what DA said, not still say it was Israel. Yeah, of course. Of course. They're so woke rights. They're so woke rights. Oh, gosh. Maura Bada says, are you covering Kash hearing? The clash with Adam and Spartacus was epic. Yes. That you must have asked this before I review what we're going to cover. What's the goal? There you go. Now you know the goal. Just for being good, dude. Number one, thank you, Kash. That's very, very kind of you. I appreciate it. I feel like I'm all zerflagen tonight. I feel like I'm zerflagen. I'm going to slowly teach you guys. I don't speak Yiddish. Okay, I'm just going to say this. I don't speak Yiddish. Like, I really don't speak Yiddish. Like, I know fewer than 100 words in Yiddish. I think it's probably around there. That's not speaking a language. That's able to like grunt in Yiddish. If I sat here my wife grew up in a house. She grew up in Borough Park, so that's around a lot of Hasidic Jews, and they all speak Yiddish. So she understands Yiddish a lot better than I do. My oldest son understands Yiddish like fluently, and I think he can actually speak it fairly well. My Yiddish is terrible, but what little Yiddish I know, I'm going to teach you via context, where I throw out words like zerflagen, and you'll figure it out, because Yiddish is not a language that you can actually really teach. I feel it's a language that you basically just understand, if that makes any sense. You're just like, yeah, there's no word for it in English. It's just zerflagen. You try using a whole bunch of different adjectives to walk you through it. But yeah, I am zerflagen tonight. All right. And number 2. Thanks, Joe. Tell the producer I said hello. Kash says hello. Thank you. That's very kind of you. All right. I had a flat soda at dinner. Obviously is yes. Obviously. Hello. They came to your restaurant, and they came to your house and snuck in there and were releasing the gas from your carbonated beverage, because it's Israel. Obviously, it's Israel. All right, let's start off and let's get this out of the way. In a brief announcement, so I want to review for you procedurally what had happened. So, in case you forgot what that moment of we opened tonight's show, Nathan Wade, that was former special prosecutor for the state of Georgia in the case of the state of Georgia versus Donald Trump. This is the RICO case that was brought in Fulton County based on his Trump purportedly doing all sorts of terrible things late 2020 into 2021, and all related to the election of 2020. And that entire ridiculous, bogus case, which frankly, I said, I don't even understand the notion of this individual state going after a president and saying that he's obligated to stick to their statutes, because I don't see how a president can act and try and comport with statutes from 51 different jurisdictions, being 50 states and federal statutes. That seems to make no sense at all. I wouldn't want any president held to that standard. How can anyone operate? This was obviously before US v. Trump came out, where the Supreme Court started carving up and explaining to us what different levels of immunity a president has. Not that this case led to a decision there, but it certainly would. The case in US v. Trump had this case proceed, and I guess technically it still could proceed. Still could, in theory, just not in Fani Willis's house or her with her claws on it. But anyhow, so she brought that Georgia RICO case, had Nathan Wade, a special prosecutor, come in there and basically try and figure out how can we go get Trump. And then she had this whole, and then Ashley Merchant, who was counsel for one of the 19 co-defendants, basically dug like a freaking frothing, crazy, aggressive attorney, and I mean that in every positive way imaginable, dogged determination to unearth the personal relationship between Nathan Wade and Fani Willis, which she argued led to appearances of impropriety, not to mention the subsequent. She basically said that's a reason to have them removed. Fani Willis then worsens the situation for herself, poisons the well even further for potential jury pool by going into a church and basically saying, they're coming after me because we're black. They're coming after me. That man's coming after me because we're black, which is only poisoning the well further. That was something, and we got a decision from Judge McAfee at the trial court level where he says, hey, look, there's a taint, there's an odor of mendacity here. There's an odor of mendacity. Mendacity meaning falsehood. After they had a 3-day hearing, which was highlighted by Fani Willis storming in the middle. She's like, I want to take that stand in her little backwards pink dress. We're reveling in like the highlights of this because this is such a crazy case. This is something that your kids are going to probably, if they study any sort of like political history, this is something that's going to go down in the annals. This is going to be like one of those some YouTube channel 100 years from now, assuming it's not replaced by something bigger, better, and far more talented than YouTube. Well, you're gonna see these different shorts. You'll see different shorts where they'll be like, in 2023, district county. Let's hear about the president who is. Let's hear about the prosecutor who tried going after the president in a backward dress. And break down in 3 minutes like the whole story. Anyway, she showed up there with her dress on backwards and basically started flouting her authority, all angry. It's like, what's going on here? I can't believe I have to answer these questions, when it became very clear that she was definitely financially getting some sort of relief, and with an odor of mendacity trying to say, no, I covered all my expenses while I was having this secret illicit relationship with the special prosecutor. And I didn't just hire him because he's my boy toy. No, I hired him because he's talented and he's the best man for the job. And I gave him back all the money. And yeah, I paid by cash and I pulled that cash out. You can't see the receipts anywhere, but I paid him by cash and I gave back all the money. It wasn't about trying to take care of my sugar daddy and make sure that he was getting his money. Yeah. Judge McAfee listened to 3 days of this idiocy. You might remember there was a guy, wasn't it Wayne Torrance, Wayne, something like that. I don't know. Partner of Nathan Wade, who was he had such a hard time telling the truth. He was on the stand, off the stand, back on the stand, changing his perspective. He's an attorney who has no idea when information is privileged or not, but kept invoking privilege. Crazy case. Judge McAfee came out with the decision, which really looked as if he didn't really have the cojones to do what he's supposed to do. Wanted it pretty clear that he knew that there was some shenanigans going on here, but I don't really have the cojones to do what I'm supposed to do. So instead of that, I'm going to split the baby here and say one of them has got to go. One of them's got to go. You can't have both of them here because you got this odor of mendacity. He really gave too short a shrift, in my opinion, and I think the opinion of many legal scholars, at least the ones I respect, that what she did when she got up in church, and that taint was arguably far worse than anything else. Like, as soon as this as soon as that application to have her removed from the case came out there, she got up and gave a church chat where she was basically, talking about how persecuted she is from those Trump lawyers and Trump this and Trump, and like basically they're coming after a black man because he's a black man, and stoking racism in an appearance that she never. It was so beyond any sort of sensibility or propriety that it was asinine. But that wasn't Judge McAfee's focus there. Instead, he was basically worried about the taint and appearance of impropriety, trying to figure out where the law worked on that. And his decision was kind of split the baby, saying, one of you has got to go. Either Nathan or Fani, one of you has got to go. Both sides appealed this to the appellate court, and the appellate court said, no, that's not good enough. She's gone. She's not on this case. We're done with her. That's what the Georgia appellate court said. This is crazy. No, she can't be here. She can't handle this case. In a 2-1 decision, Fani Willis removed from the case altogether in what was a pretty significant decision. And then she comes to the Georgia Supreme Court and says, please let me go back on the case. Please let me handle this case. I told all my friends I was going to go after Trump. Please let me go after him. Not to mention that in between, while all this process was happening, U.S. v. Trump comes out, which basically made clear that most of the allegations set forth, many, if not all, I don't want to say all, but that many, if not all, the allegations that were most damning were things that he pretty much has, if not immunity, a presumption of immunity, a rebuttable presumption of immunity. The phone call to Georgia and Brad Raffensperger, a lot of the conduct that happened there certainly seems to at least be tied in to like what his duties are to ensure that there's a valid election. It seems pretty tied in, if not constitutionally bound. So what would be left of the charges if this ever were to proceed is unclear, because I should make clear that even though we have this decision today from the Georgia Supreme Court, oh my God, where is it? There it is. Even though we have this decision which says the Supreme Court today denied the petition for certiorari. I love that word. For certiorari in these cases, and among them is this case right here, State versus Donald John Trump. So what does this mean? If you want to get into the Georgia Supreme Court, much like getting into the actual United States Supreme Court, you need to petition for a writ of certiorari saying, hey, can you please hear my case? And then let me make my argument that you shall overturn what the appellate court said. And she did that. Her office did that. Her incompetent Fulton County District Attorney's Office, and they are incompetent and laughably stupid. But her incompetent office did a petition, and today that was denied, which means there's nowhere left for her to go. This is it. The final ruling stands. That final ruling is Fani Willis is out. And there's no chance for her to ever get back in on this case. Now, does that mean that the case, so we're clear about what the law is here, does that mean that it's impossible for this case to ever proceed? No, it does not. From my recollection, when I researched this issue as to what happens if a district, it's not just Fani Willis, it's entire offices, Fulton County is out. So what happens now? Well, it could be picked up by a different prosecutor from a different county. Speculation. Long before Trump was winning the election, speculation is that it would be very difficult for Fani to find any friendly district attorney who would be willing to take this case on. It's a political nightmare. And a lot of district attorneys are sympathetic to Republicans. So this is something that seems like a unique animal. And now, in the wake of Trump v. U.S. and all these issues about immunity potentially slicing and dicing the allegations and the charges that were brought against him, which has yet to be sliced and diced at all. I think everyone, even the most ardent leftist attorney, would have to agree that there's got to be some assessment as to what allegations need to be carved out in the wake of Trump v. U.S. So I'll tell you right now, it would be shocking if any district attorney was willing to pick this case up. Any district attorney, because because you have that issue plus the political powerhouse that Trump is now compared to what he was when this case was first brought, which was obviously, he wasn't even the Republican candidate. They hadn't even started the primaries yet when this case was brought. So, the entire political landscape has changed so dramatically that anyone who might have thought that, hey, this could be good for me, this could be a political win for me, certainly would have to rethink that. And especially because the chances of this case not being dismissed in the wake of Trump v. US are slim, very, very slim. So this case is done. I'm declaring this case done. Finito. And one thing we can definitively say is Fani Willis and her connection to this case is done. And considering the arrogance that she routinely displayed and the how dare you come and challenge me and question me, and then got up on the stand and basically looked like she, her tongue was going this way and then that way, and it's at the same time, and it's slithering this way and that way. And with her outrage, her moral outrage that you're coming after a black woman here, and I run Fulton County. Literally, she campaigned on the whole notion that she's going after Trump. Everything about this was just a cluster fart, and she's gone now. So I don't expect her to be in the news very much anymore. Frankly, if her star has completely fades and she falls back into utter obscurity, I think that would be just remain for all time to become an historical punchline in the legal world. That's what she is. That's a fitting end for Fani Willis. I certainly don't want to say anyone harm her, that's for sure. But I think that her name going down in history as the punchline that she was, I think that'd be awesome. And she's well on her way. You're well on your way, Fani. Well on your way. If Israel said Jesus was a savior, they would say he was Messiah. That's probably true. That's probably true. Israel makes official statement. Jesus is their God. the woke right would be like, Jesus was Mossad. Oh my God. That'd be hilarious. Though one of yours has failed, the new memo is now orders to romanticize the killer. Sent 2 DMs from Scott Jennings and Robbie Starbuck. I plan on covering that. I know. Thank you, Kimmy. Definitely plan on covering that. You're up late. You're up late. The biggest Nathan and the biggest Fani will go down in the annals. Annals. I think you typoed there, Joey. Yes. That made Lady Logic laugh. That's asinine. It is asinine. So there you go. There you go. That's nice. That's nice and done. That's nice and over. And good riddance. Good riddance. Before we go any further, one of the things that a video I came across, which was from The Five, Greg Gutfeld, who's known, I think, for his comedy. I never thought he was that funny, to be honest with you. I think he's okay. He's cute sometimes. But he actually made a very powerful statement when he was going after Jessica Tarlow and this whole leftism perspective. I'm trying to decide whether I want to save that for earlier or later. I'm very torn about that. I'm not going to kid you. But this is... I gotta find something real quick that I thought I had. I don't see it here. Media. Oh, that didn't work. This was Jimmy Kimmel the other night. Unbelievable. 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 Yeah. Yeah. I don't even understand what they think the motive would be for someone from the right to take him out. I guess unless they feel they're trying to claim he's a woke right person or something like that. All the evidence that was from this case, like some woke right who's angry that he's not sufficiently anti-Israel or something tauted like that. But the I don't even understand. It was so obviously a fiction, and it shows you how blatant they are as far as just if we have to lie about something. This is exactly like fire mostly peaceful, and they're screaming let's go Brandon, where anyone who's looking at this with any sort of objectivity and not complete derangement is like, yeah, okay, this guy was a sick leftist, and you just denounce him. How do you politically, okay? If you're imagine you're on the left, okay? Imagine you're on the left. This is what you should be doing. And I learned this. You're not gonna believe where I learned this. I learned this watching after Jeff Rutledge won the Super Bowl for the Giants. I know. I know. I store away things in my brain when as far because I yeah, my development was I would store things away in my brain. Jeff Rutledge, what year was it? Was it 2000 or so? I don't know. Anyway, I hated the Giants when I was growing up. I hated them. Couldn't stand them. Couldn't stand them. And I'll never forget, I was watching the Super Bowl with a bunch of friends of mine who are Giant fans. And after Jeff Rutledge ended up winning the Super Bowl, and I was like pouting. Like I was like fuming about it. Back then I was young, kind of stupid. These things mattered to me. And I was kind of pouting about it, and my friends who were Giant fans were like on me about it. And one of them said to me, he's like, Joe, this is what you got to do. Some days you take the loss and you just sort of eat it. You tip your cap and you say, all right, yeah, good on you. And you act with like, grace and just eat it. And it goes down much easier that way. As hard as it seems to do it, it goes down much easier. And I stored that away. Where I'm just like, okay, some days you just eat the loss. Now, if you're a left-wing you're a left-wing influencer, you're not happy about the whole Charlie Kirk story because it's very damaging in a lot of different potential ways. It's very damaging in a lot of potential different ways. So if I was a left-wing podcaster and I'm sitting here trying to cover this story, and you sit there trying to twist it this way, twist it that way, like, no, he's not really from the left. Oh, he's obviously from MAGA. It's like you sound delusional. You're not building credibility. You basically had to say, wow, this was terrible. This never should have happened. Denounce the violence. And basically, try and you're going to try and cover up for the fact that you spent the last 10 years calling everyone on the other side of the aisle fascist, racist, Third Reich members. And you basically say that, people no one should ever take matters into their own hands. And you sort of weather it out. That's what you should be doing. But instead they're like lunatics trying to come up with different bases to try and say he's one of yours because he's from Utah. His family is like just stop it. Just stop it, because all you're doing is hurting your own credibility. And today, all those claims that they made over and over again. And they more and more. Jimmy Kimmel's not alone. Jimmy Kimmel's going exactly with the program that his stupid wealthy handlers gave to him for as long as and desperately trying to stay on the air. I have no idea if his show is making money or losing money. He's really not very talented, so I can't imagine how much longer he's long for this for a career in Hollywood, rather than going golfing with Stephen Colbert on the regular. But so you're gonna answer to your handlers and throw out there what you want, but you should basically you look like idiots, because then as soon as more evidence comes out, everyone's just like, what are you, stupid? Like, how do you think we're stupid? Like, and there is that presumption that they assume everyone is stupid. But this is the prosecutor today who came out and was explaining the charges. I reviewed the charges on Locals today. I actually had 2 streams. The first stream, I had all sorts of audio tech issues that I think was just the link was bad, because I did the same thing a second time and everything worked perfectly. And where I basically was covering Tyler being charged, and then I read through the actual probable cause statement. But I wanted to watch with you today, this evening, the Utah prosecutor here coming in here and telling us how he's going after the death penalty, and some of the tidbits of information which verify that, in fact, this guy was radicalized and he was certainly on the left. I missed a couple of these. Sorry if off topic, but being Fani a past case, I thought to ask, sorry if you covered in the past, do you think Trump case versus CBS for the 60 Minutes Kamala interview would have stuck in court? And I think CBS thought it would. That's why they settled. He did file a new $15 billion lawsuit against the New York Times. I've not reviewed it yet. I haven't really gone through it yet. If you guys want me to go through it, I can try. I assume it's pretty long. Oh my God, are they really? How is that possible? No. I'll do Gutfeld first. No sound. Okay. I should really just end everything. I should just end this stream now, because this has just been an utter disaster. You asked very nicely, Aaron. We'll start with Gutfeld, okay? Just for you. Before we get to this, we'll do Gutfeld. This was an utter takedown by Greg Gutfeld. We'll start here.
We don't need it. What is interesting here is, why is only this happening on the left and not the right? That's all we need to know.
What about
There's absolutely no cognitive.
What about Melissa Hortman that we just talked
You want to talk about Melissa Hortman? Did you know her name before it happened?
Melissa Hortman is that Minnesota state legislator, Democrat, who was brutally assassinated by she and her husband, brutally assassinated. Greg is correct here. No one ever heard of her until she was dead. Like, she became famous through death. You can't compare someone who becomes famous through death to someone who's murdered because of, someone who gains national attention. Here's the primary distinction between Melissa Hortman and Charlie Kirk. It's also a distinction between, technically, George Floyd and Charlie Kirk. You want to know why the Charlie Kirk incident trumps all of these? It's not because he's a right-wing influencer. The reason it trumps all of these is because you cannot compare someone who becomes famous through their death and gains nationwide attention because of their death to someone who gains nationwide attention because of the way they live their life, things they do in their life, and then because of that is killed. And because of that meets their death. Somebody who's in nationwide obscurity, which is most of us, I would qualify myself as being relatively obscure. And most people in my sphere, relatively obscure. You cannot compare someone who is nationwide, internationally obscure, and then through death becomes internationally known, to someone who is internationally known, and then because they are known internationally, that's why they have their death. Those two are not even in the same conversation. Because one is a question as like, how were they killed? Why were they killed? And all this other thing, whatever, as far as motives and gripping the attention of the world. It's like, oh, let's focus on this person who got killed, who no one ever heard of before, versus this person who has all the attention in the world. And because of that, they get their life is cut short. The tender age of 31. That's not even comparable. It's not the same conversation. And that's where Greg is going with this.
None of us did. None of us were spending every single day talking about Mrs. Hortman. I never heard of her until after she died.
Doesn't matter?
Don't play that bullshit with me. You know what I'm saying is there was no demonization, amplification about that woman before she died. It was a specific crime against her by somebody who knew her. The same. Now,
you can't say that. Oh, yeah, some crazy person went out and harmed Melissa Hortman because of what the media was saying about her, right? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, no one in the media ever heard of her. As opposed to this case, which is clearly able to be tied back to the media, because there's a lot of people in the media who were vicious in their attacks of Charlie Kirk.
you could bring up Josh Shapiro, but then you will not bring up, for example, that was a pro-Palestine person. So don't use your, what about this? The fact of the matter is the both sides argument not only doesn't fly, we don't care. We don't care about your both sides argument. That shit is dead. For one thing, there is no cognitive dissonance on our side. On your side, your beliefs do not match reality. So you're coming up with these rationalizations like, what about this? Or what about that? We're not doing that because we saw it happen. We saw a young, bright man assassinated, and we know who did it. We are not coming up with rationalizations. We are calm, we are honest, and we are resolute. We're not defensive, and I understand the defensiveness. I understand why people are saying, what about this and what about this? Because if you have to face the underlying fact of this, your life is going to fall apart because you're going to realize you're not the good guys. If you sat around and you defended the mutilation of children, you're not the good guys. If you sat 600, 700 cases of harassment against Republicans and you said, but what about this? What about this? And then you see this murder after calling somebody a fascist, you realize maybe I'm not the good guy. That is a hell of a realization to deal with. So Therefore, you have to grasp at rationalizations. You don't have to do that, Jessica. They do. I don't believe you're part of that group, but why the hell do you have to mimic and echo that crap to us? He was a patsy. That guy was a patsy. He was under the hypnotic spell of a direct-to-consumer nihilism, the trans cult, and you know that. If you can decide that biology is false, you can agree that murder is okay and that humanity is expendable. How you cannot.
That is he doesn't go really deeper into that point, but it is a really salient point. And that is once you turn your mind into sufficient mush that you're willing to accept anything, such as that biology is not an immutable characteristic, but that it's something that can be changed and is a change. All of a sudden human life itself takes on a whole different, much more transient, pardon the pun, type of nature. It takes on it's like human life doesn't really mean as much, which is consistent with Marxist type of perspective. That the individual is meaningless, is potentially disposable without there being much regard for being disposed. It becomes much less meaningful your life becomes much less impactful, much less meaningful. So training the public to sort of feel as if everything about their existence is really just something that's a cultural perspective. It's a construct, a social construct. When you basically tell people that that's what their lives are, you're basically telling them that humanity itself is relatively amorphous and lacking in significance. And lacking in significance makes it far more easy to say, well, if someone is a nuisance, that they should be removed because they're lacking any sort of significance. There's a complete disrespect for human life, which is a natural, on a subconscious level. They don't consciously say human life is insignificant because they need to rely on, their claim that this person they want to stand up for is very significant. So they'll never say that. But it's a natural flow for anyone who's thinking about like who they are and what they are. It's a natural flow that human life lacks the same levels of significance as someone who is created by God and part of God's will. Even if we take the religion element out of it, even if you take the fact that the relationship between man and God out of it altogether, but you just say this is an individual who is, he or she is here in their present state. There's a certain backbone to their existence, which if you start saying that they can be changed around into different things, you wither away at that notion. And once you wither away at that notion, then their very life doesn't have the same meaning. So even someone who doesn't believe in God, once you wither away the permanence of who this person is and say that that's amorphous, then their very life starts lacking in the same type of permanence, because they're not here fixed on this earth and living out their days. They could be something else. And if they can be something else, they can also be gone.
See that alone and see that for what the evil it is without having to attach all of these other things is beyond me.
I just want to be clear. I want to let people speak. I in no way intended at all to minimize what happened to Charlie. I was horrified by it. I have not been on the five since then.
And Greg was smart for trying to take Jessica out of the collective group that he was attacking. And I don't think that most people on the left think through the things that I was just expressing to you, because they're just swallowing whatever it is that their TV is telling them. I think it affects them on a subconscious level, where they don't value life. You start to trivialize the value of life. And the only time a life becomes something that needs to be heralded and protected and savored and respected is if it's someone who you can use that person as a basis to show that you have value. I'm about to express here, just before I'm going to go further in this. This is a fairly deep concept that I'm trying to convey to you in ways that I feel that most of you will be able to digest. But when I'm talking about the significance of the individual, the more amorphous and mutable, the more changeable an individual is, the less they have significance. Because you can't even define what they are. If you can't define what something is, it's hard to attach significance to it. And so when they end up saying that this person, this illegal alien, is so special and important, it could be Kilmar Abrego, it could be Marilyn Mann, it doesn't matter. Or somebody who's beheading people who now we have to protect that person. It doesn't matter. But the reason that person becomes important to them, the reason they do that, the reason is because this person presents to them an opportunity to virtue signal. Because in your brain, when you start thinking through on a subconscious level, you start thinking through about, people can change, whatever. These are folks who feel a lacking in their own significance. So, and that's a very empty feeling. It's an uncomfortable feeling, a lacking in your own significance. And these are the reasons that the left is so desperate to virtue signal, so that they can say, no, I do have significance. I do have nobility. Everyone needs to see how noble I am. Everyone needs to see and appreciate how significant and important I am. So they'll take these various figures and use them as pawns, as an opportunity to virtue signal, no, I'm one of the good people here because I care about this particular individual. When the reality is that the underlying philosophy they're embracing is a disrespect for all of humanity, including that particular individual. But they can't trivialize that individual, the Kilmar Bragos, or some woman who wants to get an abortion, or some black person who purportedly can't figure out how to get an ID. They need to take these different individuals and prop them up as significant. So that, why do they need to have significance? So now they have a cause that they can stand up for. And then because they have a cause that they're standing up for and say, I'm one of the good people fighting for this individual over here, or this minority group. Now I have significance. Now I'm finding my significance and my importance through standing up as a representative to these people who are under the boot of some other evil people on the other side of the aisle. So I need to basically claim that the other people are trying to clamp them down. And it's much easier for me to do that if I just say, of course, they're always evil because they're racist, they're fascists, etc. And now, now I find a sense of purpose. If I'm sitting here on the left, I can find a sense of purpose by basically saying I am one of the good people because I stand up. I'm an ally. I'm a defender. I'm an avenger. I'm part of I'm part of the Avengers who are standing up for all the oppressed people of the world. And even though that the philosophies that I have are basically ingraining in me an utter lack of regard for human life, I'm going to pick up on certain particular individuals, not because I actually care about those individuals, but because if they present an opportunity for me to virtue signal to the world so that everyone in the world can see that I'm really good, that makes me feel better about myself and gives me significance. That's what's happening here.
Side's argument, it's like pig Latin to a duck.
No, all that I was saying is could we have all of the information before you just say they did this? Because that is a broad brush to paint with this. And this kid
Let's have a conversation.
No,
Charlie had a conversation. He got shot.
I understand.
I'm sorry, Jessica. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You weren't here for a week. You came in here and it's cold. And I'm sorry, but this is a story that is immune to news cycles. It's immune to rationalizations. It's immune to bias. This thing is with us for good. And we all have to deal with that. So that means we can't live by the same arguments that you might be reading about relativism among the media. We can't deal with those stories. It doesn't matter. The media is dead to us on this story. They built this thing up. We're dealing with it. We're going to act. We don't care what the whataboutism is anymore. That shit's dead. Sorry. For the swearing as well. I apologize to the American public. I'm going to shut up for the rest of the show.
Very powerfully stated there by Greg. Very powerfully stated. But and that's another thing. Charlie Kirk's assassination is something that I think we couldn't appreciate the as we're now nearly a week away from it, we can better appreciate it as a significant moment in American history that doesn't just flood together with other political moments. This does change things in a lot of different ways. Now, I don't want it to change things in a way that our government is talking about. I don't want it to change things in the ways that Pam Bondi was implying with the whole hate speech crap that she wants to start chasing after. Because I think that that's a very terrible change, a very, very terrible change, which ultimately will be used to punish us. If hate speech is something that becomes something that the government is that we ask our government to go track down and prosecute and go after whatever the heck hate speech is, one day you will regret it. I can promise you, you will deeply, deeply regret it. It is not a good thing. This is not something the government should be handling. The government should be in the business of prosecuting people who are violating laws in the ways that our laws are already drafted, not finding new and creative ways to try and prevent bad things from happening in the future. Same way I don't like the government meddling with our economy to try and fix the economy. I don't like the idea of them trying to meddle with statutes and finding new ways of reading these statutes. And I certainly don't want our government to go out there and start trying to define what hate speech is and criminalizing it. We have enough statutes on the books. We have enough laws on the books. That's all. We don't need this. And if this becomes something that becomes accepted by the public, that we're going to prosecute people for the words that they say, even if those words do not cross the robust rules that are set forth in Ohio v. Brandenburg as to when something becomes incitement, and all of a sudden we start broadening that out, you will regret it. Because you, your friends, your family, people you know and care about and love, one day, maybe not next week, maybe not next month, maybe not during this administration, but one day you will deeply regret it. And I fear that day. And I have enough foresight to say, I don't want to walk down this road. And we have enough ways of remedying the situation without government interceding here and trying to protect us from mean speech. So I definitely don't want to see that. I do want to see, obviously, Tyler Robinson fully prosecuted, and I want the book thrown at him in every way imaginable. I do not want to see a plea deal here. I don't want to see them saying, okay, plead guilty and we'll just give you life in prison. No, I want them to give the cold and exacting full force of the law. Because if there is any softball that happens here, it becomes interpreted as a win, and it becomes an encouragement. It becomes something that you're enabling other people to feel as if this is something that is a viable way of actually progressing. This is something which, if the law in Utah allows for us to put this guy in the ground, and hopefully not after like 20 years of appeals, but really actually, just lay him out, so that by the time our next president is sworn in, he's cold in the ground. Assuming he's found guilty, obviously. I don't want anyone to harm him. I want the law. I want the state to take care of him. I want justice to find this guy. I want justice to hunt this guy down and chase him all the way to the bowels of hell. But if that happens, that sends a message that there's no playing around here. And God forbid if that doesn't happen, if there was softball going on here, or some deals that were going, if something like that were to happen, which I don't foresee happening, but if something like that were to happen, if this had happened during the Biden administration and you had a DOJ, which was going to be like, well, okay, we're going to cut him a deal in 10 years. We'll give him 10 years for this, or some stupidity like that. All that would serve to do is enable and encourage others. And then you would see more from the left, more violence from the left. And you would also start to see retribution from the right. You would start seeing it happen on both ways. And our society would become a place that would be a disaster zone. So this is an area where the full might of the law, for the protection of society long term, so that we don't devolve into that, the full weight of the law needs to come down very hard on Tyler Robinson. And I credit his father, who went out there and turned him in. It's really all his dad and his mom. This is the prosecutor from Utah giving his statement earlier today about the charges that were brought against Tyler Robinson. Before I get to that, let me just cover any chats I missed. Of course. Can you please give me a penny? It took me forever to get to the $9.99. Thank you for all you do. You're welcome. I'll see what I can do. If you go to 7-Eleven, I think that I left a penny there for you. Because there's the give a penny, take a penny. I'm always the give a penny guy. All right. I'm usually the credit card guy. Yes, please, Joe, if you can, cover the New York Times lawsuit in one of your next shows. Thanks. I'll look at it. No The one on our side said the Minnesota politicians deserve what they got. Both right and left wanted the guy caught and prosecuted. And that is a big distinction, too. There's no need for us to call out violence against, assassinations, because no one on our side was cheering for it. And Destiny, I played yesterday how Destiny was screaming, why didn't Trump say something? Because if Trump said something, no one on your side of the aisle who needs to hear the message would do anything. This is why Destiny's claim yesterday, and if you missed it, shame on you. But I was showing how Destiny was on Piers Morgan, and when Piers was calling him out for inflaming the rhetoric, and he's like, "Why? I'm just a podcaster. Why don't you say?" What's crazy to me is that Donald Trump didn't come out and say that rhetoric from both sides needs to be calmed down. How are you guys excusing this? What kind of world? No, here's the thing. If Trump did do that, no one on your side of the aisle who needs to hear the message would be listening to him. You think Tyler Robinson's of the world be like, oh, Trump said tone down the rhetoric? No one would. So what would be the point? And frankly, on our side of the aisle, it's not something that anyone is screaming and praising, as opposed to TikTok videos of people crying, "Yay, Charlie's dead!" Like, we're not the same. We're not the same. You and I are not the same. Not you. You and I are probably pretty similar. And I'm not talking to you. You understand? I mean the colloquial you, other side of the aisle, crazy leftists. Get ready for November 15th, because Socialist America has something big planned for that day. Flyers are all colleges. Colleges? I'm going to assume you mean flyers with collages are in all colleges. That's what I'm going to assume. I type a lot also. Still think odd years don't matter in elections. This is an odd year thing. Touche. I like it. Because I have said that many years. Odd years don't count in elections. It has to be a significant enough thing that it carries into an even year. I'm saying it's an isolated incident that happens in an odd number year. People don't remember that unless it's impacting them. I pointed out that the recession, the Great Depression started in 1929. That's an odd number year, but that impacted the next several years. So how does a plea deal work? Do all parties have to agree to it? And if a plea deal should happen, our records, etc., sealed, praying for no plea deal. You and me both, Barb. We are both praying for no plea deal here. The way it works, as far as I understand, not that I've ever been involved in a plea deal because I never represented a criminal defendant and I never worked with the state. So the way in general it works is that the state would offer to the defense counsel saying, you plead to this and we'll recommend to the court that the following sentences be, you waive your right to defend yourself, and we'll recommend to the court a particular sentencing period. And then defense might counteroffer and say, yeah, we think we can do better. And we saw like deals like this happen, for example, most recently on a national level with Brian Koberger. He wanted to get out of the death penalty, and he basically said, I'll plead guilty. This was with the Oregon 4, and that's they'll take, and they won't ask for the death penalty. So that's what they pretty much how it works. Ultimately, it has to be approved by the courts. The court has to agree to it, and the court, in theory, once the person, so then after they come to terms. So now they present the deal to the judge, and they'll appear and argue before the judge. Usually, I would assume in writing, and then they'll come before the judge, and the judge basically ask the person if they're willfully pleading guilty to whatever charges that they ultimately agree that he's going to plead guilty to. And the prosecutor makes the recommendation for what type of sentencing they should get. And both sides, both prosecution and defense, would basically be presenting the same arguments as to what the appropriate sentencing should be. Sometimes it'd be within a range of a period, and the defense counsel asks for, to err towards the lower side of the range. And then ultimately it's in the hands of the judge to decide whether or not he's going to accept the plea deal, which usually they will, and what punishment to attach, which in theory could be harsher than what the prosecutor asks for, or it could be more lax than both sides agree to. Usually they will go along with the recommendations, though. You need to realize that the prosecutor and most of these defense attorneys, it's not like they never see this judge. They tend to know what the judge, get a pretty good feel for what the judge is going to do. These are, especially when you're talking about a more significant case, the prosecutors who are handling it are going to be seasoned veterans, people who are regulars in the courtroom, people who know the clerks and judge by name and have a relatively close bond with them. If not friendship, certainly, day by day, we're seeing them, multiple times a month, where as soon as they walk in, if they pass each other in the street, there would be recognition that they know each other and maybe even an exchange of pleasantries. It's not like they're strangers and don't know each other. And the smaller the jurisdiction, the more likely that is to happen. It's less likely that would happen in a place like New York City. But in Salt Lake City, I would think that's far more likely to happen because they don't have nearly the same levels of crime and cases. Or, in Oregon. All these, it's not like it's in New York where there's just so many attorneys and so many judges and so many clerks. So I think that's a overall pretty good picture. Sorry, I'm in flowers constantly. That's what I figured. It's actually my sister's birthday, November 15th. People in the know say Destiny is on something. He looked like he was on cocaine to me. I made a comment that he doesn't look organic yesterday. He looks like he's on cocaine. It's why his jaw flaps like a cow chewing. It's cut in fast motion. He has way too much energy. He looks I have no reason to know. I'm not accusing him. I'm just saying he looks like people, when you see people on cocaine, they look like what he looked like on that show yesterday. I thought he was on cocaine. I heard the father turned down the $100K and will not be supporting his son defense. Is there any truth in this? Have not seen any direct reporting on statement. I haven't heard anything about that. I can understand the father saying that. I think he's repulsed by what his son did. But what we'll do is we'll listen to what this guy says, what the prosecutor says, and then we'll. So the family, Charlie's wife, etc., has not said whether they will accept the plea deal. So I apologize for not answering that part of the question. The family's not a party in criminal cases. And I know this might sound weird or foreign. Erica Kirk is not a party in the case of the state of Utah versus Tyler Robinson. And even, it's not just because, she's from Arizona, but even if this happened in Arizona, she's not a party. The victim's family is never considered a party. The offense is deemed to be against the state specifically. So we don't look at what's even stranger is even if the victim is alive, if you're talking about, let's say an assault, a violent assault, and the victim's still alive and testifies, and then a plea deal could be arranged by the prosecutor with the defendant over the screaming objections of the victim themselves, saying, no, I don't want this. I want you to go after this person. No say. Now, politically, they tend to try and respect that to some degree because, the newspapers have a field day with it. But, prosecutor agrees to plea deal while victim is screaming and crying. They need to win elections, these prosecutors, to get back in there, and that's a bad look. But no, Erica Kirk doesn't have any official say. Now, if the prosecutor decides to give some latitude and respect to what she's saying, first you try to convince her to see things his way. But even if he couldn't, you know, so he might bend to that, but it's ultimately prosecutor's call. The family has no say. The victim themselves has no say because it's considered the only parties are the defendant and the state. Well, not current Nick, but yeah. What are the chances Tyler Robinson actually gets capital punishment, and what's the earliest it could happen? So they say, I'd be very surprised if it happens during the current administration. They say that the appeals in this tend to take forever. Forever. It's very, I mean, they say that, I think they say the average wait time on death row is like over like a dozen years. It's crazy. Crazy. Goal! Sorry. We hit our goal tonight. So I was screaming goal like I was some Spanish football player, football broadcaster, because someone wrote goal. What about victim impact statements, or do you consider that a separate part of the sentencing process? That's part of the sentencing process. And again, I'm telling you what I understand to be and based on what I've seen and things like that. But victim impact statements are designed to enhance sentencing. So after a defendant is found guilty, they'll have victim impact statements to motivate the judge to be harsher in sentencing. There's a sentencing guidelines which are supposed to give the judge some sort of perspective as to what an appropriate term would be based on a host of different factors. How violent, how much contrition, first-time offense or multiple offenses, you know, all sorts of different factors that they're supposed to weigh in when they're issuing sentence. So victim impact statements are part of the process in the sense that enables, I think that they're a good thing, and that enables the victim's family and the victim to basically talk about the impact and destruction of their life that's happened as a result of the horrors that were committed by the defendant. But they don't, it's not something that the judge can consider it or can disregard it. So that is, but it's part of the sentencing process. And I don't know whether victim impact statements tend to come into play when there's a plea deal, especially a plea deal that is agreed upon, you know, because a plea deal, they're agreeing to like the duration of the sentencing. Although I think they might allow the victim. If I was a prosecutor, I'd be like, and you know, the process allowed for it, I'd be like, yeah, let them put in the victim. If it helps them feel better, helps them heal, they can write a letter to the judge as to how terrible things are because of what this monster did. I think that's actually a very productive and useful thing, potentially, just psychologically and emotionally. Kimmy Joe, Tyler needs to be made to watch Charlie videos on loop forever. 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 Brian Oldenkamp hit me. Oh, that's the wrong one. Sorry, you get double. 10 Good Lawgic memberships. 10 new people brought into the following courtesy of Brian Oldenkamp. God bless you. Following 10 people should express their gratitude for being brought into the following courtesy of Brian Oldenkamp. That would include Brian Ogden. From Brian to Brian, there's been no one like Brian. Leafy, Newspin, Linz. Oh no, it jumped on me. All these people should express their gratitude to Brian Oldenkamp for bringing them into the following. KJ, Boohoo, None Ya Business. Been a minute since I've seen you, Nanya. Rebecca M, Max, and Max Deplorable 2A. Welcome to the following. Please bear in mind that I am not at all the leader of the following. I'm just the host. I'm just here. A lot of people get very confused about that, but that's definitely something you all need to bear in mind. I forgot to cover this earlier. Uzelian said, Joe, a little background on the CP holder and the first suspect in the Kirk shooting. The guy's a nut job. I know he is. I know he's a lunatic. I plan on talking about George Zinn. I plan on talking about him. I need to move along because I feel like I'm way behind in the show tonight. When I start talking about Charlie Kirk, things just many states have victim bill of rights. Okay. Idaho 4. I don't know why I keep calling them the Oregon 4. Yeah, the Idaho 4. Thank you for correcting me, Mo. Appreciate that. Sentence varies on state In some states, the judge decides the sentence, and others, jury decides the sentence. See, everyone's rubbing my face that I'm not a criminal defense attorney. That's interesting, though. I would feel like a victim if my wife or child was murdered. Of course you would. I don't think anyone can deny the fact that Erica Kirk and her children are victims. But like I said, even the victims themselves wouldn't have an opportunity to say anything. Victim impact statements will still happen with play. Okay. I wouldn't argue that. This is where my lack of experience with actually carrying out the process in court, because I've never been a criminal defense attorney. I handle things on the civil side. Makes me always feel very uncomfortable. So I'm trying to give general parameters, but I appreciate you guys fleshing out and better enlightening my audience. So good on you. Thank you. All right, let me get into the prosecutor here.
The murder of Charlie Kirk is an American tragedy. Charlie Kirk was murdered while engaging in one of our most sacred and cherished American rights, the bedrock of our democratic republic, the free exchange of ideas in a search for truth, understanding, and a more perfect union. It is also an offense against the state and to the peace and enjoyment of the people of Utah and of all those who visit here. But Charlie Kirk's murder also strikes a more personal and intimate chord. Charlie Kirk was first and foremost a husband and a father to two beautiful young children. He was a son, he was a brother, and a friend. Like all murders, the senseless and needless taking of Charlie Kirk's life has shattered the lives of those he loved and those who loved him. To Charlie's wife, Erica, his two young children, his parents, his family, and his friends, I express my sincere condolences and offer my heartfelt prayers on your behalf.
I'm going to play this a little faster.
I want to express my concern for everyone who was at Charlie's Turning Point USA event at the Utah Valley University, and all who have been impacted by this tragedy. As county attorney, I am charged with bringing justice to those who offend our laws. I am charged with bringing justice for those who are harmed. I am charged with bringing justice for Charlie Kirk. I am committed to these aims. I take this responsibility seriously. Today, after reviewing the evidence that law enforcement has collected thus far, I am filing a criminal information charging Tyler James Robinson, age 22, with the following crimes. Count 1, aggravated murder, a capital offense, for intentionally or knowingly causing the death of Charlie Kirk under circumstances that created a great risk of death to others. Count 2, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury, a first-degree felony. The state is further alleging aggravating factors on counts 1 and 2 because the defendant is believed to have targeted Charlie Kirk based on Charlie Kirk's political expression and did so knowing that children were present and would witness the homicide. The state is also charging defendant with count 3, obstruction of justice, a second-degree felony for moving and concealing the rifle used in the shooting. Count 4, obstruction of justice, a second-degree felony for disposing the clothing he wore during the shooting. Count 5, witness tampering, a third-degree felony for directing his roommate to delete his incriminating texts.
And the way he structured the charging indictment, if you saw me cover it on Locals, is very, very thorough. I like the way he drafted this. I'm not sure if it's him or the man standing behind him to his left, who was the one who appeared in court today. But yeah, it was very, very well written in that it just lays out in very simple type of terms and walks through where they're checking off each charge as they're going through the list of allegations that sets up probable cause for these crimes to have been committed.
Count 6, witness tampering, a third-degree felony for directing his roommate to stay silent if police questioned him. And count 7, commission of a violent offense in the presence of a child, a Class A misdemeanor, for committing homicide knowing that children were present and may have seen or heard the murder and did so based on Charlie Kirk's political expression. Also, following the press conference, I am filing a notice of intent to seek the death penalty. I do not take this decision lightly, and it is a decision I have made independently as county attorney, based solely on the available evidence and circumstances and nature of the crime. Because we are seeking the death penalty, the defendant will continue to be held without bail in the Utah County Jail. Turning to the 10-page information, these are the allegations. On September 10th, 2025, at approximately 12:23 p.m., Charlie Kirk was shot and killed while speaking to a large crowd on the campus of Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. Police found the suspected murder weapon, a bolt-action 30-06 rifle, nearby. Over the next approximately 33 hours, police conducted a manhunt for the shooter until the evening of September 11th, 2025, when Tyler James Robinson surrendered to police at the Washington County Sheriff's Office. DNA consistent with Robinson was found on the rifle's trigger. After shooting Mr.
And I don't know how, yesterday someone was telling me, and I don't know the science behind it, someone was telling me that touch DNA takes multiple days to process. And I speculate it's possible that they had like sweat or other things of his on that type of DNA is, you know, what they found to tie him to the gun and the crime scene. But they have a ton of evidence here, so I'll be curious to check into that.
Kirk Robinson hid the gun, discarded the clothing he wore when he fired the rifle, and told his roommate to delete incriminating text messages and not talk to police. Children were present at the time of the shooting. Turning Point USA.
Is it really so low? I know it's a little low. The audio on this is very. I tried turning this up.
A nonprofit organization founded in 2012 by Charlie Kirk organized a public outdoor event to be held at noon on September 10th, 2025 at UVU. The event was the first in a series of similar events to be held at college campuses nationwide. Mr. Kirk is a well-known conservative activist, famous for these type of events where he discusses various political issues and debates with audience members. His events and comments have garnered a significant number of supporters and drawn the ire of many who disagree with his political views. The event at UVU was announced far in advance and garnered significant publicity and interest. Consequently, several hundred people attended. Mr. Kirk was interacting with a crowd before the event officially got underway. Then at approximately noon, Mr. Kirk seated himself under a portable canopy behind a table and microphone. He began speaking to the crowd and fielding questions from attendees, a format Mr. Kirk commonly used at his events. Mr. Kirk allowed his questioners to approach a microphone positioned directly in front of him. Mr. Kirk's team members were very close to him on his right and left, as well as some behind his canopy and others at various close locations near him. The large crowd surrounded Mr. Kirk on three sides. Temporary metal fencing separated attendees from Mr. Kirk by only a matter of feet. Directly above and behind Mr. Kirk was the UVU Hall of Flags, an indoor walkway spanning several hundred feet with floor-to-ceiling glass windows, which overlooked the plaza where Mr. Kirk was seated. People were in the walkway at the time of the shooting. Approximately 15 minutes into the event, Mr. Kirk was answering a question about mass shootings by transgender individuals when a gunshot rang out. The bullet struck Mr. Kirk in the neck. He slumped to the ground almost immediately. The bullet's trajectory passed closely to several other individuals beside Mr. Kirk.
I apologize. I missed this from J.H. Schwalbach a while back, and he sent a $50 tip. I should ring the bell, but I'm afraid I'm going to blow your ears out because most of you have your things cranked up, so I'm going to spare you that. But J.H. Schwalbach says, Joey, I usually start drinking an hour before your show starts. I believe it enhances my super chat abilities and giving. So when you start a local stream in the middle of the day, I grab a bottle of scotch out of my left bottom drawer. It scares the F out of my employees. I'm in California. They start thinking, are we going under? Is there an audit? Did one of my mistresses max out her credit card? Please, more heads up. Great show, though. This guy's funny. You're funny, JH. Viola Pride says, is there a possibility it goes to trial that it'll be streamed? I'm sorry. I know some courts do and some don't. And I don't know how they become televised. Great question from Viola here, that she's one of our diggers. And I'll tell you, I think there's a very high chance that this would be streamed, given the fact that they're shared today's event. Utah, in general, even with respect to the federal court, seems to be very, very open to the idea of streaming their trials out. I would expect it to be streamed if, in fact, this goes to trial. I expect it will be streamed, and I, as well as I'm sure probably a dozen other people who you like and follow, all of us will be covering it. This is something that we're all going to be following in this case. So if it goes to trial, which I think there's a decent chance, it probably wouldn't go to trial till next summer, the earliest. But yes, I think that if it goes to trial, it will be streamed, and I and all of my peers will certainly be covering it, and with God's good grace.
Including the questioner who was standing directly in front of Mr. Kirk. Children were visible.
Oh, and I forgot Breck Nichols said, "So far, so good and awesome. My new name for diggers, the Joe Rostarians. Thank you so much. I'll never be able to pronounce that. The Joe Rostarians. No way. No, I can't. Diggers is fine.
Mr. Kirk's stage when he was shot.
Thank you.
Mr. Kirk was rushed to a nearby hospital where he was declared deceased. The medical examiner's report is still pending. So UVU surveillance. So at the moment of the shot, a UVU police officer was watching the crowd from an elevated vantage point.
It's all coming from the probable cause statement, and he's trying to spell out, this part is designed to spell out how it is that they know that they have the right guy here. How do we know? Well, we all know what happened, but how do we know we have the right guy?
As soon as he heard the shot, he began to scan the area for threats. Believing the shot came from a rifle because of its sound, he looked for potential sniper positions. And
this is designed to set up that we know that the shot didn't come from a different window or something like that. We know where the shot was taken from. This is how we establish that.
He noted a roof area approximately 160 yards away from Mr. Kirk as a potential shooting position and rushed there to look for evidence. The suspected shooting position is adjacent to an open, publicly accessible walkway. To access the suspected location, a person must climb over a railing and then drop to the roof only slightly below. The UV officer climbed over the railing and down onto the roof. He then walked to the suspected shooting position and confirmed a clear shooting corridor between the position and Mr. Kirk's seat. He also noticed markings in the gravel rooftop, consistent with a sniper having lain on the roof, impressions in the gravel potentially left by the elbows, knees, and feet of a person in a prone shooting position.
So now establishing that this is a spot from which the shot could have been taken, and here are all the bases to think that this is why it was taken from that particular location.
Police reviewed surveillance from the camera covering the roof and discovered that it recorded an individual dressed in dark clothing cross the railing from the public walkway and drop onto the roof at approximately 12:15 p.m. Although the individual moved out of the camera's view for a short time, the camera again captured the individual running across the roof and then low crawling to the area the UVU officer recognized as where the suspected sniper had dropped into a prone shooting position. After a short time, which matches the known time of the shot, the individual arose and ran across the roof to the northeast. This discovery led to an intensive review of UVU surveillance recordings to attempt to track and identify the suspect. Surveillance revealed the following. At approximately 11:51 a.m., the suspect entered campus from the north. He is seen wearing a black shirt with an American flag in the center, a dark baseball cap, and large sunglasses. Throughout the surveillance, the suspect keeps his head down and rarely raises his head enough to get a clear image of his face. As he proceeds across the campus, he is seen walking with an unusual gait. The suspect walks with very little bending in his right leg, consistent with a rifle being hidden in his pants. This unusual gait continues until the suspect is seen crossing the railway off the open walkway and onto the roof, where he leaves the camera's view. A camera later captures the suspect as he runs across the roof to the suspected shooting position. Immediately after the shot was fired, a camera captures the suspect running across the roof carrying an item whose shape is consistent with a rifle.
Now, when I look at the video, I don't see him carrying a rifle there. And others have raised similar things. I'm not sure. I mean, that allegation to me is something that I'm like, okay. Now, and I had the question that was sort of bothering me is someone asked me, where's the gun? When we were watching the video of him running across the roof and jumping down, because I don't see the gun either. Maybe some of you see it. When he's walking with the straight leg gait, yeah, fine. I'm talking after the shot, after he fires the shot and now is fleeing. I don't see the gun anywhere. They're gonna have to go somewhere. They find the gun, the spent casings, and this is not the only evidence that they have. But he says that you can see it in the video. I personally do not. Maybe they have some better video that I haven't seen.
The suspect is then seen climbing down from the roof. He appears to drop the item he was carrying as he hits the ground in a controlled fall. He then picks up the item and runs toward the northeast end of campus. Expanded crime scene investigation.
He said carrying.
Law enforcement officers followed the suspect's escape path to the northeast end of campus, where they believe the suspect left campus and entered a wooded area. In that wooded area, investigators found a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a towel. The rifle contained 1 spent round and 3 unspent rounds. This is consistent with the facts officers observed at the time of and immediately after the shootings. No shell casings were found on the roof, suggesting a bolt action rather than an auto-loading weapon, and only a single round was fired. Each round in the rifle contained an etched inscription as follows. The fired cartridge was etched, "No Tice's bulge, OWO, what's this?" The second cartridge that was again not spent, the last 3 were not spent, were not fired. The second, "Hey fascist, catch," with arrow symbols. The third cartridge, "Oh Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Chow Chow."
That reference, "Oh Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Chow Chow," in case you're unfamiliar with what does that mean? So the first one there, he says, "Notice his bulges." Apparently, I looked this up, and that symbol is something that references furries, which are people who are into, I don't know, some sort of imaginative people becoming animals, engaging in sexual activity, or something like that, where people play that they're animals of various natures. Which his roommate / lover was transing and seemed to be into furry type of stuff. So I don't know why it is, but it's from some old meme. Fascist catch is something that's easy to understand, and it's very damning to the left in general, because they're the ones who are continually screaming fascist, fascist, fascist. And they now are trying to absolve themselves of any sort of liability that they helped inspire this lunatic, when they're screaming fascist, fascist, fascist all the time. And now he's etching on the bullet itself, fascist catch. You want to tell me that this is a right-wing groiper? And come on. The Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Chow Chow is a reference to a song called Bella Chow, which became very popular after Netflix put out a TV series called Money Heist. If you're unfamiliar with the TV series. So in Money Heist, it's basically about a bunch of criminals who are assembled by a mastermind to break into the Spanish mint and basically plant themselves in that mint while being held down under siege from the police for several days while they're printing money and printing money and printing money that they hope to take with them. I'm not going to give you any spoilers, but it actually ran for several seasons, and the first season was fairly good. It was entertaining and well thought out. The main characters, when they are become identifiable as people who are fighting up against oppressors, and they sing this song Bella Ciao, which has its origins going back, I believe, to World War II, Italy. Bella Ciao being an Italian song, all the lyrics are in Italian. The nature of the song Bella Ciao is it's a fun song, but it's basically about partisans who are fighting against an oppressive government. And that's why this was relevant here. Why is he writing Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Ciao, Ciao? It's because it's basically a song about someone who's fighting up against, that was inspired as someone who's fighting up against an oppressive government and trying to overthrow fascism, overthrow an evil government. And in the song, the character expects to die. If you actually listen to the lyrics of the song and have them translated into English, which I've done because I enjoyed the song, it's actually a revolutionary who's basically instructing his lover. And he says, Bella Ciao. He's saying goodbye. Bella means, my beautiful one. Ciao obviously means goodbye. So he's saying goodbye, my beautiful one. And he's basically saying that he's going off to die as a revolutionary, and that he's hoping that, she'll bury him on a beautiful hill, and that his memory will be like something she'll visit and come visit him on the hill after he's buried. And that's why he's singing Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Ciao, Ciao. And so the song became very popular in Money Heist because the main characters who are holding up the bank and become sort of celebrities, that they're standing up to an oppressive Spanish government, and that they're basically fighting for justice for the individual and for the man. So that's the whole nature of what that reference is, Bella Ciao. So that's why I would say Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, 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 like written out like that, which he read very flatly, but clearly is the lyric from the chorus of that song.
The fourth cartridge, if you read this, you are gay. LMAO. The rifle, ammunition rounds, and towel were sent for forensic processing. DNA consistent with defendant was found on the trigger, other parts of the rifle, the fired cartridge casing, 2 of the 3 unfired cartridges, and the towel. Law enforcement was unable to immediately locate the shooter. So they published photos of the shooter from the UVU surveillance cameras and asked for the public's help to identify him.
I will warn you, if you watch Money Heist, that the last season becomes as woke as possibly imaginable and somewhat unsettlingly woke as a trans member joins the gang, and certain members of the gang try coming to grips with that and starting off being very transphobic, and ultimately then coming to a place where I think he ends up basically getting sexually involved with the trans. It's just it's pretty much Tyler Robinson's story.
Meanwhile, law enforcement continued to try to identify the shooter through other means. The Washington County investigation. On the evening of September 11th, 2025, as law enforcement continued their investigation, Tyler James Robinson went to the Washington County Sheriff's Office with his parents and a family friend to turn himself in. Robinson's mother stated that...
And this is why there's really overwhelming evidence. Obviously, everyone's considered innocent until proven guilty. So from the eyes of the law, he's innocent. But the reason why in the court of public opinion, he will never, ever, ever be innocent, no matter what happens with this case, is because he came in with his parents and admitted that he did it.
The following to police. On September 11th, 2025, the day after the shooting, Robinson's mother saw the photo of the shooter in the news and thought the shooter looked like her son. Robinson's mother called her son and asked him where he was. He said he was at home sick and that he had also been at home homesick on September 10th. Robinson's mother expressed concern to her husband that the suspect shooter looked like Robinson. Robinson's father agreed. Robinson's mother...
The point that I was making is Ciao Bella is not at all the same thing as Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Ciao, Ciao. That's not the same thing. That's very clearly an Antifa reference revolutionary fighting against the oppressive government.
Explained that over the last year or so, Robinson had become more political and had started to lean more to the left, becoming more pro-gay and trans rights oriented.
Boom. Boom. Leftist narrative, goodbye. This is from his own mother saying this about him, how he started now turning against family political perspectives and becoming very strongly leftist.
She stated that Robinson began to date his roommate, a biological male who was transitioning genders. This resulted in several discussions with family members, but especially between Robinson and his father, who have very different political views. In one conversation before the shooting, Robinson mentioned that Charlie Kirk would be holding an event at UVU, which Robinson said was a stupid venue for the event. Robinson accused Kirk of spreading hate. Robinson's father reported that when his wife showed him the surveillance image of the suspected shooter in the news, he agreed that it looked like their son. He also believed that the rifle that police suspected the shooter used matched a rifle that was given to his son as a gift.
I cannot express how impossible it is for us to imagine what it's like to be Tyler's parents in that moment, and the aggravation and grief and what the steps that they take here are heroic. And a lot of parents would not take this step. A lot of parents would not. As awful and heinous as Tyler is, his parents here display incredible nobility. They, first and foremost, and I just want to point this out, they could have just played dumb. A lot of parents would have not confronted this. They would have seen it and thought, wow, that really could be Tyler. No, it can't be Tyler. I won't even question it. And choose to blind themselves to what happened here. A lot of parents would have done that, but not his parents. His parents were heroic in saying, recognizing this was a terrible thing, and that they are coming to grips with the fact that their own child, who's only recently radicalized, right? It's not something like they've been fighting with him for a decade, is recently radicalized, and now that, trying to examine whether or not he's the one who did this terrible act. The inner conflict that they must have been feeling, the overwhelming emotion, I feel such pain for them. I feel terrible for Tyler's parents. And they probably, and what's really even more sickening to me is the notion that I hope I'm wrong in my assumption, but that, they probably get some level of hate. And they are, saying that they're to blame or whatever. And I'll tell you right now, what they did here is something that should earn our utmost respect, because a lot of parents would not have done what they did here. They would have blinded themselves, and we never would have ever found out. It could have taken a lot longer if we ever did find it. It would have certainly taken a lot long, considerably longer before police would have come to Tyler, if not for his own father. So there's a bravery there and an inner fortitude of character, which is very admirable.
As a result, Robinson's father contacted his son and asked him to send a photo of the rifle. Robinson did not respond. However, Robinson's father spoke on the phone with Robinson.
I even like the way the father did this as a father. Instead of accusing him, he's just, he's showing that, hey, he has concerns about what's going on here and whether Tyler's involved. And he's like, send me a picture of the rifle, because he knows that the shooter doesn't have the rifle. And he knows that his son should have his rifle.
Robinson implied that he planned to take his own life. Robinson's parents were able to convince him to meet at their home.
And then when he's thinking about, he'd obviously love him because they don't want him to self-delete. So it could have just been like, good riddance. But no, they didn't want to see him self-delete.
As they discussed the situation, Robinson implied that he was the shooter and stated that he couldn't go to jail and just wanted to end it. When asked why he did it, Robinson explained there is too much evil and the guy, referring to Charlie Kirk, spreads too much hate. They talked about Robinson turning himself in and convinced Robinson to speak with a family friend who is a retired deputy sheriff. At Robinson's father's request, the family friend met with Robinson and his parents and convinced Robinson to turn himself in. The family friend spoke to police and reported telling Robinson that it would be best if he brought all evidence with him to the sheriff's office to avoid police having to search his parents' home. The friend also asked Robinson if he had any clothes that were related to what he did. Robinson replied that he had disposed of the clothes in different areas. The roommate. Police interviewed Robinson's roommate, a biological male who was involved in a romantic relationship with Robinson. The roommate told police that the roommate received messages from Robinson about the shooting, and he did provide those messages to police. On September 10th, 2025, the roommate received a text message from Robinson which said, "Drop what you're doing, look under my keyboard." The roommate looked under the keyboard and found a note that stated, quote, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it."
This is what I'm saying. There's a ton of forensic evidence. There's admissions. There's subsequent evidence. There's admissions in multiple different ways. This case is an easy slam dunk for the prosecution. This is not like the Idaho 4, where it's like, okay, you have some evidence there, but then you have some questions about testimony and what people saw. This is hardcore evidence where no matter, that this is the guy.
Police found a photograph of this note. The following text exchange then took place. After reading the note, the roommate responded, "What? You're joking, right?" Robinson, "I am still okay, my love, but I'm stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet."
Here's the thing. And they must have known that Governor Cox was calling for the death penalty before Tyler even came in. And part of the nobility of what his father did here was he helped the Kirks and society not be deprived of justice, of his son facing justice.
"Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I got to."
Because he was going to self-delete.
Still, to be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you.
That's what Tyler texted to his roommate, his boyfriend roommate, who he refers to as his own lover. That he texted, "I'm sorry to have involved you," but under the keyboard, he said, "Look under the keyboard," and he sees a note that Tyler left behind saying that he had an opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and he took it. And his roommate was at first in expressed shock. Now, I want to be clear here. None of this really exonerates the roommate. This all could have been orchestrated by Tyler and his roommate after the shooting to try and exonerate the roommate from any culpability. So we should not be at all surprised here if Lance Twiggs was involved. I know that they say he's cooperating with police, but I do not think that Tyler was working alone. And we'll see, I'm going to share with you a story that makes one question the notion whether Tyler was working alone.
"Mate, you weren't the one who did it, right?" Robinson, I am. I'm sorry. Roommate, "I thought they caught the person." Robinson, "No, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering." Roommate, "Why?" Robinson, "Why did I do it?" Roommate, "Yeah." Robinson, "I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it." Roommate, "How long have you been planning this?" Robinson, "A bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, but there is a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it." Robinson again, "I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. IDEK if it's had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about prints. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. Didn't have the ability or time to bring it with. I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find prints. How the F will I explain losing it to my old man? Only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. Remember how I was engraving bullets? The F in messages are mostly a big meme. If I see notice bulge UWU on Fox News, I might have a stroke, all right. I'm gonna have to leave it. That really effing sucks. Judging from today.
I should say, I question legitimacy. If this was orchestrated by them afterwards, it's very well done. I'm gonna admit that. It just reads the way people tend to text. Like you're changing your mind in the middle of sending a text and you start sending something and you're talking about one thing and then because he's talking about one thing, like, you know, my dad's gonna kill me. Oh my God, they're here. It's like, that's the way people text. So I threw some potential shade at the roommate that he might have been involved in this was orchestrated, but I should weigh in with my personal opinion that the writing here does seem, if it was done afterwards to try and protect the roommate from prosecution, they did it very intelligently, like very, very intelligently. Uzelian says, I look more into the song Bella Ciao. It's an anti-Nazi, anti-fascist Italian folk song dedicated to the partisans of Italian resistance. It's a fun song.
I'd say Grandpa's gun does just fine, IDK.
Oh, and Rusty Shackleford says, been checking Fox and CNN to compare framing. CNN created an animated GIF of Tyler's text to his boyfriend. They left out the my love parts, and the boyfriend's name was roommate. They still haven't reported the relationship. Sickening. So sickening. They're so sick.
I think that was a $2K scope. Wink, wink. Robinson again, delete this exchange. Again, Robinson, my dad wants photos of the rifle. He says Grandpa wants to know who has what. The feds released a photo of the rifle and it is very unique. He's calling me, RN, not answering. Robinson, since Trump got into office, my dad has been pretty diehard MAGA. Robinson, I'm going to turn myself in willingly. One of my neighbors here is a deputy for the sheriff. Again, you are all I worry about, love. That came from Robinson. Roommate, I'm much more worried about you. Robinson, don't talk to the media, please. Don't take any interviews or make any comments. If any police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent. The search for Robinson's residence. Police executed a search warrant on Robinson's residence. During that search, police discovered a shell casing with etchings like the etchings found on the shells in the rifle near UVU. Police also found several target boards with bullet holes in Robinson's home. Now, as I stated in the beginning, when I read those allegations, these are allegations. And like the evidence set forth in this statement, those allegations, what you've heard from the media, even from state and federal officials, has not been tested in the crucible of a jury trial. I understand the public's desire to know the facts. My own family members have pressed.
I like that he did that because he's trying to help protect that it shouldn't be like, by my holding this press conference here, I don't want to be viewed as if I tainted the jury pool. So these are allegations, but these allegations still need to be borne out through proof and trial. And that way, if the defense comes forward and says, hey, you tainted the jury pool when you held that whole press conference, he can point to the end here and say, I told everyone, this is not, none of this is proven, and it needs to, you know, test the crucible, it needs to be tested by the crucible of a jury.
For information. Why are we reluctant to share the details of the investigation itself and comment on the case? Because I want to ensure a fair and impartial trial. I became a prosecutor because of my love for the ideals of this great country and the principles embedded in our Constitution. The free exchange of ideas and opinions is critical to this great American experiment, but so too are the protections afforded to the accused found in the 5th and 6th Amendments. The right against self-incrimination, the right to a speedy and public trial, the right to the effective assistance of counsel, the right to confront one's accusers, and the right to compel the attendance of witnesses. And perhaps most importantly, under our Constitution, the accused is presumed innocent until we, the state, prove to an impartial jury of defendant's peers his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. That jury cannot rely on our allegations, on what they hear in the news, or on what they hear from a public official. The jury is the sole trier of fact, and they will ultimately determine those facts based on evidence a trial judge has determined is admissible. Again, as prosecutors, we bear the burden to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. But make no mistake, we welcome this burden. I'd like to now introduce my trial team who will be charged with prosecuting the case.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it here. You basically now have the facts as laid out in the probable cause statement. And so you ask yourself, how is this reported by the media?
We have seen.
This is ABC News reporting on it.
We have seen an alleged murder with such specific text messages about the alleged murder weapon, where it was hidden, how it was placed, what was on it, but also it was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. A very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate who was transitioning calling him my love, and I want to protect you, my love. So it was this duality of someone who
duality? That's what struck you? Duality? Not the overwhelming evidence that this guy is a monster? This duality? That's what you're fixated on as soon as you hear this
attorney said not only jeopardize the.
Would you be doing that if it was a woman who he was texting? Zero chance. You'd be focusing on the duality. The duality. You're a duality.
Life of Charlie Kirk and the crowd, but was doing it in front of children, which is one of the aggravating circumstances of this case. And on the other hand, he was, speaking so lovingly about his partner. So a very interesting and, as Pierre said, riveting press conference day.
Oh, riveting. Yeah, riveting. Oh, just riveting. Just riveting. How much
we have seen an alleged murder.
Sickening, folks. There's something really wrong. There's something really wrong with these people.
Google still tracks you in incognito mode. Use DuckDuckGo, a real private
That's not what I wanted you guys to be hearing right now.
You get a built-in search engine like Google, but it never collects your search history. And you can browse like Chrome, except it blocks most cookies in it.
If I even have Fox News in the background, they just come after you. Gosh, unbelievable. Unbelievable. All right. So I certainly will intend to continue watching and covering this story. Should share with you another thing that came out related to this story today is, some of you may recall, the first person who was investigated was George Zinn, a 71-year-old man. He's a bit of a lunatic. It would be. I'll work on it. I'll see what I can put together for you. Old man who falsely claimed that he shot Charlie Kirk is known gadfly who told cops he did it to draw attention from the real shooter. There's a report on that. The known political agitator who falsely confessed to shooting Charlie Kirk while in the audience at the Conservative Star event told investigators he was told to draw attention. He was trying to draw attention, not told. Trying to draw attention from the real shooter, according to reports. Court records reveal that George Zinn, 71, a known gadfly, who was led away from Utah Valley University in handcuffs after the assassination last Wednesday, told cops he was trying to distract them from the real assassin, local station Fox 13 reported. Oh, that's an accessory after the fact right there. Zinn approached cops immediately after Kirk was killed and yelled, "I shot him, now shoot me," the report stated, citing police who noted that he was unarmed and taken into custody. So During the police interviews, Zinn admitted he did not kill Kirk, but said he wanted to cause distraction to draw attention from the real shooter, according to court documents reviewed by Fox 13. The false shooter made similarly strange and opaque comments after being transported to a local hospital due to a medical condition, saying, quote, he wanted to be a martyr for the person who was shot. Those court papers stated, according to the outlet. Police said his initial comments delayed the investigation into Kirk's killing and needlessly took up law enforcement resources at a critical juncture in the probe. He's charged with obstruction of justice, which is a second-degree felony. Video from the chaotic aftermath of the assassination at Utah Valley University showed Zinn with his pants around his ankles being dragged away by police as a crowd of college students looked on in horror as he wailed, shoot me. Quote, he said he shot him, but I don't know, one officer told the crowd, which was under the impression that Zinn was the shooter, and yelled and swore at him as he went by. His image spread across the internet, with many believing in the immediate wake of the assassination of the elderly man with the cleft chin pulled the trigger on Kirk. Zinn is known locally as a political gadfly who frequently pops up at events and is nearly always tossed out, with numerous trespassing arrests and events like film festivals, protests, and political rallies. Quote, almost every political event you can think of, there was always George somewhere in the background listening, Salt Lake County District Attorney Sam Gill told the Salt Lake Tribune. He's a person who can be odd and has those kind of sometimes odd behavior challenges, said Gill, who has prosecuted Zinn several times, but by and large, he's more of a gadfly than anything else. So that's George Zinn. Today, there's new news about George Zinn. The elderly rabble-rouser who allegedly hindered Utah authorities' response after Charlie Kirk was fatally shot is now accused of keeping graphic sexual photos of children on his phone. Maybe you should start taking the blame for things while you're holding a phone which has, which shows what a completely perverted, sicko, twisted individual you are. George Zinn said he was charged with 4 counts of sexual exploitation of a minor Monday when investigators found more than 20 images of kids as young as 5 years old, at least partially naked and posing in a sexual way, the Utah County Sheriff Office said in a news release. Yeah, who would have thought that someone on the left is a sick, demented peto? Zinn admitted that he gets sexual gratification from viewing and sharing child sexual abuse material images with others, and that his preferred victim age is 5 to 12 years old, the agency alleged. Sick, sick, sick. Zinn, who's political gadfly, there you go, typical lefty. Typical extremist lefty. That's what I should say. Typical extremist lefty. He's also facing charge of obstruction of justice after he allegedly admitted to screaming that he shot Kirk. So there you go. That's George Zinn. Sick, freaky loser. Charge of aiding and abetting, is there not more serious accessory murder charge? Well, he might have been the reason Tyler escaped. I would think there's be obstruction potentially. I would think that that'd be 20. Isn't it 18 USC? What was it? 15. Why am I drawing a blank now? I'm feeling old. The obstruction charge all J6ers got hit with. Subsection C2. 1512? 18 USC 1512 is what I think off the top of my head. Did I get that right? Now I'm curious. 18 USC. That's obstructing an official proceeding. That's destroying documents, really. But I was right on the statutes, 18 USC 1512. So they're probably, I'm not sure. But they seem very serious about going after things as aggressively as possible. So there's that. I wanted to find something that I saw about. Now my brain is fried for a second here. So trying to. Did I really? I apologize. Show the Scott Jennings Montel video in your DM. That's what you want me to do? I can do that. I can do that. I plan on sharing the George Zimmer thing anyway. If I can find it here. This is what Kimmy wants me to share with y'all.
Talking about a love.
I got loud.
Torn child, a kid. This is probably his first real relationship, and somebody was disparaging the person that he loved. He sat on that building for 30 minutes before he took the shot. Why did he wait until the first word trans came up? Then he took the shot.
You think he heard it? He could hear it?
I think he could hear it. I think he also, I don't believe he was motivated politically. I think this was motivated emotionally.
Guys, the evidence here is overwhelming. He said, Charlie Kirk, I can't stand this hate anymore. I'm going to take him out. The testimony from him and the statements of his family, he had become more left wing. He etched the statements that are made by the left about Republicans and conservatives and Charlie Kirk fascists on the bullet casings.
He made a joke about it in his last text.
Well, it doesn't sound like a joke to me because someone's dead and about to be buried.
Well,
so it doesn't sound like a joke to me. So I'm just telling you, there was an effort all weekend long on the left to try to make this guy sound like he was a conservative. That failed. That was passed around all over the weekend. That has now failed. The evidence has now come out. He was motivated by hate. He was motivated by left-wing radicalism. He got mixed up with some trans ideology in his life. We'll learn more about that, I'm sure, when more evidence and testimony comes out. We are looking around the edges of this for something other than what's staring us in the face. Left-wing radicalism got this kid. He went up to a roof and he murdered our friend, and that's what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. These are the same people who could see someone scream, Allahu Akbar, die you Western infidels, and start speculating that maybe they were in a fight with their lover. Like, I don't know how anyone takes them seriously anymore. Which is why I think no one does. I don't think anyone does. Staring you in the face. Montel Williams. He who introduced the world to Kamala Harris. These are true. These are facts. There are pictures of a young Kamala Harris with Montel Williams. I was trying to find something that I remember Jim had, I think Jim had shared with me. I think, which was how there were neighbors who said that they saw cars with out-of-state plates that had been visiting. Was it a DM I got? I'm trying to remember where I saw it. I forgot to put it aside. I meant to have it here, and I don't have it for you, and it's bothering me because I wanted to share it with you. I want some share with you, Scott Jennings. Here's him destroying another leftist on this very same topic.
Why did I do it? I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out.
So can I ask you? So
he has flat.
Scott, just explain what you just read.
That is the message that the shooter, Tyler Robinson, sent to his roommate. That is what he said. He also engraved the word, "Hey, fascist, catch," on the bullet. For 10 years, we have heard nothing from the left but that Donald Trump is a fascist, Republicans are Nazis, authoritarians, destroy the Constitution,
but that's
bloodbath,
so
dictator for a day, and he. wrote it on the bullet.
So can I ask you?
And he's been obviously marinating in some kind of information that radicalized him based on what he heard in the air in this country.
So does the shooter who assassinated Melissa Hortman, who was a stated Trump supporter, whose roommate said
Are
he
you
was a
trying
Trump
to
supporter?
equate
The reason that's such another reason I brought down a couple of reasons why that's such a stupid comparison is because she's not someone who's a target of the right. And there's no one on the right who said, oh, great job taking her out, as opposed to people who are cheering Charlie Kirk's demise and desecrating his vigils.
Does he represent? Can you let me finish my thought, please?
Please.
It's
We're
not a
talking
thought.
about two people
It's pretty stupid thought, but go ahead.
in politics who both. I'm asking you, does that
Lives were both
shooter
taken.
represent?
Lives were both taken. Are you drunk? Are you drunk? Listen to yourselves.
Represent the entirety of the MAGA movement? Of course not. I would.
No, it's not. Anyone from MAGA celebrating that? Yay, we got Melissa Hortman. Woohoo! We got Melissa. No, of course not. Of course not. A single person? Was there one person from MAGA who said, yay, we got Melissa? Compared to all the other radicalized crazies who are all like, yay, ha ha, they got Charlie Kirk. Who's next? And you're comparing what your rhetoric has been doing to what purportedly right-wing rhetoric has been doing?
I'd never argue that. I don't think you would argue that. So why is it acceptable to use this moment to argue that somebody, a sick individual who committed a horrific crime,
How do you know he's sick?
It's not just him. Because what he did was celebrated by other people who follow your idiocy. That's the answer, Scott. He comes with a different answer. It's like, how do you even know he's sick? Why do you even think he is?
who committed a horrific crime,
How do you know he's sick?
is somehow Are you here to argue for his sanity?
I'm here to argue. All I know is what the prosecutor said today. He read very lucid messages from a shooter who was motivated by political hate, who had a plan to get away with it. He did not sound like a deranged person. He sounded like someone who had decided to take it upon himself to rid the world of someone that he hated politically, that he thought that the world would be better off without that. That's different than some deranged lunatic showing up off the street.
His actions were horrific, but to assign the specific hateful, violent, awful actions of somebody on an individual on the right or an individual on the left,
I don't know that
to
you're
the
right about what
entirety
happened in
of the
Minnesota.
political conversation.
No, it's also the reaction from your side as opposed to the reaction from the right.
Is incredibly dangerous and irresponsible.
No, you're dangerous and irresponsible, and you don't want to take accountability for your dangerousness. And instead, you're trying to pretend that you can just wash your hands of this. This is not on us. We didn't do this. He's one of yours. First, we're going to lie and say he's one of yours. Then we're going to say, no, it's just one person. He's a crazy person. Not on us. Not on us. While your own stupid, when the heavy tards from your base are dancing in the streets and making TikToks and excitement about it, it's not on us. It's not on us. How can we know? How can we know? So disingenuous.
Well, I think it's dangerous and irresponsible for nobody to take responsibility for 10 years of the use of the language fascism, Nazi, authoritarian, so on and so forth. It's on the bullet case.
I have seen nothing but Democrats in the wake of this murder saying that it was awful.
You've seen nothing?
I have seen them
literally nothing.
Elected.
Oh my God. Unbelievable. You're crazy. Zinn says they ignore the fact in 2013 he did a bomb threat on Salt Lake City Marathon. It wasn't long after the Boston Marathon bombing. They're talking about George Zinn there. Yeah, I think he's a lunatic. He's a lunatic and he's a coward. So. I want to move on to Kash Patel. So let's get into that and his awesome work today. Oh, I see it. Oh, this is what I was looking for. I knew I put it aside somewhere. Okay, this was in conservative brief. Before I get to Kash Patel, there's one more thing that I told you I was looking for, and I was like, where did it go? And it's covered in so many ads that I didn't even see it when I was like looking through my tabs here. This raises questions as to whether or not he was a lone wolf, and which, if you believe this neighbor of Charlie Kirk, who suspects sharing damning info, says Tyler Robinson, the man who's accused of killing Charlie Kirk, was living with a transgender partner who was changing from male to female. The person in question is fully cooperating with the FBI's investigation into the shooting death of the conservative organizer, according to law enforcement source who spoke to the New York Post. The person in question is fully cooperating with the FBI's investigation. Public records show that Lance Twiggs, who's 22 years old, lived at the same home as Robinson, a Twiggs family member told the Post on Saturday. Yes, they were roommates. The family member, who did not want to be named, said Twiggs was a black sheep of the St. George, Utah family. They would not say that the two men were dating, though. Look at this stupid advertisements. This thing just jumped on me. Ah. Lord. Oh my God. Tyler Robinson, the man who's accused of killing Charlie Kirk, was living transgender partner, was changed from male to female. Person in question fully cooperating. Public records show that Lance Twiggs, who's 22 years old, lived in the same house as Robinson. A Twiggs family member told the Post on Saturday, yes, they were roommates. A family member who did not want to be named said Twiggs was a black sheep. She said she didn't know what her cousin believed or if Twiggs was changing genders, but it wouldn't surprise her if he was. Family member said she knew Twiggs was questioned by cops Saturday. The Post said that no one was at the $1,800 a month apartment that Robinson and Twiggs were thought to be shared. Friends said 2 weeks ago they saw several people going in and out of cars with license plates from other states. The neighbors said they didn't give off a good vibe. Several people. And this is with Twiggs, and this is one of the things that made me question whether Tyler is trying to cover up for his furry friend, because several people from different states supposedly visiting the two of them. Now, we don't know if Twiggs was there. We don't know if it was some general party or some sort of plotting that was happening there. So we don't know. But you see this, and this, if you trust this neighbor, which, again, this is an anonymous source, I just wanted to share this with you, because when I saw this, my first thought was like, what the hell is that? And maybe that leads people to think that he was not acting as independently and individually as he's trying to imply in those texts. And that perhaps Lance Twiggs knew about this, his furry friend. Tyler Robinson pled not guilty and was refusing to cooperate. All people around him are cooperating. And neighbors said they saw people driving cars with out-of-state plates giving out that did not give a good vibe. Lone Wolf got it.
And anything new on the investigation? You say he admitted that, confessed?
No, not again. He is not confessed to authorities. He is not cooperating. But all the people around him are cooperating, and I think that's very important. There were reports yesterday that we can confirm that his roommate was indeed a boyfriend who is transitioning from male to female. That's information that the FBI had mentioned yesterday. We can confirm that as well, and that he is cooperating with authorities as well.
So the dialogue with Kirk was, do you know how many transgender Americans have mass shootings the last 10 years? Asked attendee Hunter Kozak. Too many, Kirk responded. Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America the last 10 years? Kozak followed up. Counting or not counting gang violence, the Turning Point USA founder saw clarity. After that, Kirk was shot. So anyway, I've heard this before. Brave browser, no ads or commercials. I've heard this. No one in the right protested to destroy memorials for Melissa. Of course they didn't. No one was happy Melissa was dead. It's the stupidest thing in the world to try and compare Melissa. It's a red herring designed to deflect from what everyone sees here is that the left and the media helped radicalize this guy into being insane. Someone who came from parents who seemed to, in times of crisis, reflect genuine character. It's horrifying. It's really horrifying. All right, I need to get quickly through. This is where it is. This is great. Kash Patel was answering questions from the Senate committee today about who were questioning him and the way he handled recent events. And this is unbelievable. This exchange between Adam Schiff and Kash Patel. If you haven't seen it yet, I'm going to give you like 30 seconds to grab some popcorn because, wow, Kash Patel going hard at Adam Schiff and basically pulling no punches. You ready? This is a good one.
The American people to believe that? Do you think they're stupid?
No, I think the American people believe the truth, that I'm not in the weeds on the everyday movements of
you're not in
inmates.
the weeds?
What I am doing is protecting this country, providing historic reform, and combating the weaponization of intelligence by the likes of you. And we have countlessly proven you to be a liar in Russiagate, in January 6th. You are the biggest fraud to ever sit in the United States Senate. You are a disgrace to this institution and an utter coward.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised that you continue to lie from your perch and put on a show so you can go raise money for your charade. You are a political buffoon at best.
Well, you can take an internet troll.
Take it to the bank that the FBI is protecting this country and the state and citizens of California. We are bringing historic reform. Point of order. But all you care about is a child sex predator that was prosecuted by a prior administration, and the Obama Justice Department and the Biden Justice Department did squat. And what did President Trump do? Bring new charges courageously. And what have we done?
Chairman,
you said I'm the most transparent FBI director in history. 33,000 pages of information to you. I challenge you to say anything credibly to the truth. Go ahead and run to the cameras where you want to go now.
You be quiet.
Oh my God. They did Kash Patel a favor in muting Adam Schiff's mic there at the end. Wow. Wow. Now, he was being attacked on Epstein, and I have questions about what Kash Patel did with Epstein, but that's where the left wants to go. Obviously, they want to go to Epstein. All of a sudden now they care about Epstein. They didn't care about Epstein until Obama was coming into focus as a potential suspect for Russiagate. So all of a sudden they start caring about Epstein. You never heard Adam Schiff complain about Epstein until Tulsi Gabbard came out with all the evidence on Russiagate. So he's a complete scam artist. I don't trust Kash Patel on that Epstein thing at all. As you've heard me say many a time, I don't trust him at all on that particular issue. But him calling out Schiff for him being the biggest fraud ever was just unbelievable. Unbelievable. And So yeah, I take with a grain of salt when he calls them the most transparent FBI ever. Where he says we're making traditionally non-transparent agency the most transparent it's ever been, and we're just getting started. Look at this. They don't even believe that Kirk's killer wrote these text messages. So that was earlier today, and I just wanted to share that with you because I thought you need to see it. You need to know it. I was going to give you. I think that's pretty much everything I had for you on Kash Patel. There's a few other things of stupid leftist leaders yelling about tighter gun controls, but I'm already 2 hours and 20 minutes in here. So I'm going to transition over because we did meet our goal today. Go, you guys. You're awesome. God bless you. And it's because of that, because we met our goal today, that at 2 hours and 20 minutes into tonight's episode, I'm going to extend for an additional half hour non-Charlie Kirk related topics that are going on in the news. So yes, let's commence with that. Let us commence with that. First and foremost, what did I have for you here? I had a bunch of things. I'm just on the wrong tab, so I need to pull that up real fast. A little. All right. A horrific story that many of you probably heard of, but I'm sure some of you have not. I'm even going to put a poll on this because I'm very curious. Did you guys hear the story about the beheading? If you either heard about it, if you know what it's not like you're going to be like, wait, which beheading? A beheading here in America. Did you hear that happened within the last 2 weeks? Are you aware of a story? I would show you the video, but my channel come crashing down. Horrible. And there's a video, if you search the internet, you can find it, which is taken from an aerial perspective where you can see a head go flying into a driveway. I'm going to break it down for you. Curious what percent of you know about this. You can weigh in locals too. Sorry, and in not just locals, and my diggers. Sickening story. Just want to. It happened on September 10th. Day Charlie Kirk was killed. We'll start here. Person who was beheaded at a Dallas motel on Wednesday morning, and a suspect is in custody, police say. Both have now been identified. Police identified the victim as 50-year-old Chandra Nagamalaya, and the suspect is 37-year-old Yordanis Cobos Martinez. Cobos Martinez has been charged with capital murder in connection with the killing. WFAA crews saw dozens of police vehicles in the scene in downtown Suites Motel in the 3400 block of Samuel Boulevard near Interstate 30 and the Tennyson Golf Course in East Dallas. The entrance to the motel is blocked off with crime scene tape. Police say they were called to a stabbing call at the scene around 9:30 a.m. and found a suspect had cut a person with an edged weapon several times. Dallas Fire Rescue also responded to the scene where the victim died. Officials say the suspect is charged with capital murder according to an arrest affidavit from the Dallas Police Department. The affidavit details the events that led to the gruesome scene. According to the affidavit, a witness said she saw Cobos Martinez were cleaning a motel room when the victim, Nagamalaya, approached and told Cobos Martinez not to use a broken washing machine. That was his big evil thing that he did. The witness told police that Cobos Martinez became upset because the victim was speaking to her to translate rather than speaking directly to him, according to the affidavit. At this point, surveillance video showed Cobos Martinez leave the room, pull out a machete, and begin attacking Nagamalaya, who attempted to escape the assault by running to the front office, according to the affidavit. During the assault, the affidavit said Cobos Martinez paused to go through Nagamalaya's pockets and took several items. The suspect also fought the victim's wife and son multiple times as they tried to intervene. Stephanie Elliott said she witnessed the attack and told WFAA that the suspect began stabbing the person with a machete after an argument in the motel property. The victim tried to run away but fell, and the suspect continued stabbing. He just kept hitting him and hitting until he decapitated him, Elliott said. I could not believe that anybody would do another human being that way. Audio from broadcast classifieds and police incident detail reports also describe a chase and a suspect armed with a machete cutting someone's head off. Dallas Police Executive Assistant Chief Terrence Rhodes said during a press conference that officers patrolling the area responded to take the suspect into custody. You watching?
From the Dallas Police Department with an update on this situation and the investigation. We're going to bring it to you in full.
This morning at about 9:30 a.m., Dallas Police responded to a stabbing call in the 3400 block of Samuel Boulevard. The preliminary investigation determined that the suspect cut the victim with an edged weapon several times. Dallas Fire Rescue responded to the scene where the victim died. The suspect is in custody and charges are pending. This is an ongoing investigation, and updates will be provided at a later time. Our officers were proactively patrolling the area and responded quickly to take the violent criminal into custody. Even though he was armed with a bladed weapon, the officers showed tremendous restraint and used minimal force to apprehend him. This violent crime will not go unpunished, and our department will thoroughly investigate and bring charges against the suspect. Violent crime is not welcome in our city.
Can you tell us to the two?
I'm not in response to the questions, man.
First Assistant Chief Terrence Rhodes there. I want to bring in senior crime and justice reporter Rebecca Lopez. And Rebecca, you really got the tip that helped alert us to what was going on here.
All right, so I don't care about the rest of you. What happened today was Trump weighing in on it. President Trump on Sunday weighed in on the terrible reports of a Texas man's beheading and pledged to pursue justice for the victim's family who were allegedly forced to witness the brutal killing. I'm aware of terrible reports regarding the murder of Chandra Nagamalaya, a well-respected person in Dallas, Texas, who was brutally beheaded in front of his wife and son by an illegal alien. Of course. Of course. An illegal alien from Cuba who should have never been in our country. Yes. Yes. course. See, beheading is just, it's just doesn't feel very American. So Trump said the suspect, Yordanis Cobos Martinez, was previously charged with crimes including child sex abuse, of course, grand theft of a motor vehicle, and false imprisonment. Surprise, surprise. Surprise, surprise. He accused the Biden administration of allowing him to enter the country. Quote, the criminal who we have in custody will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law and be charged with murder in the first degree, Trump added. The Dallas Police Department arrested Cobos Martinez on murder charges on Wednesday at a motel in Dallas. He's accused of using a machete to behead a local merchant in front of his wife. I cannot begin to describe to you just how horrific it is. You're watching what looks like, you're like, what am I watching here? And then all of a sudden, it's like an aerial view of a parking lot. And then all of a sudden, you just see a head rolling into it. And you're like, that can't be real. And the guy picks up the head and walks off with it. I think from what I recall. Does it in front of the guy's wife and kid. ICE has lodged a detainer with Dallas County Jail where the suspect is being held for his federal arrest and removal. Quote, this vile monster beheaded the man from his wife and child and proceeded to kick the victim's head on the ground. The gruesome savage slaying of a victim at a motel by Yordanis Cobos Martinez was completely preventable if this criminal illegal alien was not released into our country by the Biden administration, since Cuba would not take him back. Tricia McLaughlin, an assistant secretary at the Department of Homeland Security, said in a statement Friday. Quote, this is exactly why we are removing criminal illegal aliens to third countries. She continued, President Trump and Secretary Noem are no longer allowing barbaric criminals to indefinitely remain in America. If you come to our country illegally, you could end up in Eswatini, Uganda, South Sudan, or Seco. ICE said the suspect has a past final order of removal to Cuba, but he was released on order of supervision on January 13 because Cuba would not accept him because of his criminal history. So there you go. There you go. Who would have thunk it? It's unbelievable. It's really unbelievable. Crazy. Crazy. While we're on the topic of illegal aliens, let's talk about one of our favorite people in the world, one of our favorite judges. The judge says she won't intervene in the deportation of migrants to Ghana. A federal judge, this is the Hill reporting, said she will not intervene in deportation of migrants to home countries where they may face torture and persecution after they were first sent to Ghana by the U.S. government, saying her hands are tied. Oh, who is that? Oh, U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan acknowledged orders from other judges stating that 5 plaintiffs in the case are more likely than not to experience torture or persecution if returned to their home countries, but noted that she lacks the jurisdiction. Quote, the court does not reach this conclusion lightly. It is aware of the dire consequences plaintiffs face if they are repatriated, and it is alarmed and dismayed by the circumstances under which these removals are being carried out. They shouldn't have come here in the first place. Especially in light of the government's cavalier acceptance of plaintiffs' ultimate transfer to countries where they face torture and persecution. You don't know that's going to happen. But its hands are tied, Chutkan said in a 16-page Monday night ruling. The ruling presents a win for President Trump's administration that has struck deals with other African countries, including Rwanda, Uganda, Eswatini, to send immigrants as part of the president's mass deportation agenda. I'm not going to kid you. I never heard of the country Eswatini until 12 seconds ago. The 14 migrants, most of whom are Nigerian, will be sent to their home countries from Ghana. Attorneys for 4 Nigerian migrants said on Monday that the clients were still held in Ghana. Ghana's officials refuted the claims of lawyers saying that individuals will return to their home nations. None of them are, it's like she's boo-hooing. I just wish we can keep them here. but there's nothing in the law that lets me do that. I'm just going to overturn 10 seconds from now. None of them are staying in this country. Nobody's being held in any camp, and nobody's right has been abused. Ghana's Minister of Government Communications and presidential spokesperson Felix Kwakye Ofosu said in an interview with EAP on Tuesday. Ofosu said one Gambian migrant was flown home. Other 13 individuals, all from Nigeria, were sent to their home country on a bus. Chuckin, surprise, surprise, admonished the administration's actions in the case. Defendants' actions in this case appear to be taken in disregard of or despite its obligation to provide individuals present in the United States with due process and to treat even those who are subject to removal humanely. These actions also appear part of a pattern and widespread effort to evade the government's legal obligations by doing indirectly what it cannot do directly. Yeah, why don't you just expand your powers yet again? Actually, sort of surprised that she didn't. Sort of surprised that she did not, but she didn't. So, so that's a good thing. And all right, I've been avoiding the whole Trump 15 billion thing. A lot of you want me to look at it. Let's get an overview. Let's get an overview from the post-millennial here. Okay, we'll get an overview. I really don't know anything about this other than that he's suing the New York Times for 15 billion for defamation. Trump to sue New York Times for 15 billion over Epstein reporting. According to the Post-Millennial, President Donald Trump on Monday announced his plans to file a $15 billion defamation and libel lawsuit against the New York Times days after the newspaper published articles about his alleged ties to financier Jeffrey Epstein. This is what he wrote. Today, I have the great honor of bringing a $15 billion defamation and libel lawsuit against the New York Times, one of the worst and most degenerate newspapers in the history of our country, becoming a virtual mouthpiece for the radical left Democrat Party. I view it as the single largest illegal campaign contribution ever. Their endorsement of Kamala Harris was actually put dead center on the front page of the New York Times, something heretofore unheard of. The Times has engaged in decades-long method of lying about your favorite president, me. Such a Trumpian post. My family, business, the America First movement, MAGA, and our nation as a whole. I am proud to hold this once respected rag responsible, and we're doing so with the fake news networks such as our successful litigation against George Slopadopoulos, ABC, Disney, and 60 Minutes, CBS, Paramount, who knew they were falsely smearing me through a highly sophisticated system of document and visual alteration, which was, in effect, a malicious form of defamation and thus settled for record amounts. They practiced this long-term intent and pattern of abuse, which is both unacceptable and illegal. New York Times has been allowed to freely lie, smear, and defame me for far too long, and that stops now. This suit is being brought in the great state of Florida. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. Now, I had seen this post, but he hasn't mentioned anything about which particular lies he was talking about. So the Post-Millennial is bringing in here that it's because of Epstein. The announcement follows recent New York Times coverage focused on Trump's reported connections to Jeffrey Epstein, and material the paper described as sexually suggestive, including a note and drawing claims that Trump has disputed. Trump had threatened last week to sue the paper over that reporting. That's where the Post-Millennial is coming to that conclusion, I guess. So that's why they think that it's that. It's a really interesting thing for him to go down that road. If he's going to go down that road, you know, obviously the defense to defamation would be truth. So the burden of proof would be on him to establish that what they reported about Epstein is false. With there being limited access to the Epstein files, you sort of have to ask yourself, how is he going to accomplish that? To prove that their reporting is false. Now, there have been a lot of rumors that have been going out over the last couple of months about Trump in the Epstein sphere, obviously. I've talked about them multiple times on this show. I'm sure you've heard many other people talk about them as well, and all sorts of questions about that particular issue. Some of these allegations, including that he met Melania through Jeffrey Epstein. Allegations from Annie Farmer. I believe it was Annie. I don't remember. It was Annie Maria. I think it was Annie. One of the Farmer girls. They're sisters. So don't think I'm being, racist against, Midwestern farmers. So Annie Marina Farmer, I believe it was Anna, claiming that she saw Trump at some office and that he showed up there and she felt threatened, and he said no, and Epstein said laughed and said, no, she's not for you. Go in the other room or something like that, to basically imply for the first time in 20 years of talking about this that Trump had some sort of, she felt intimidated that Trump was going to abuse her or something to that effect, which sounded ridiculous the way she told the story. But there's been a lot of frustration with refusal to access the files. I do remain under the assumption that the reason he does, my personal belief, and this is obviously subjective opinion, but after going through this over and over again, trying to figure out what the heck is happening in this story, my personal belief is that he is motivated by coming into the DOJ and finding that their records basically have been warped by the previous DOJ, and that he doesn't want that out there because there's all sorts of crap in those files designed to make him look terrible. That's what I believe to be the case. And I'm mindful of the fact that, people on the left are going to claim otherwise, but people on the left seem not to care at all about Epstein until Obama was under the glare and under scrutiny for what he did with Russiagate. So all of a sudden now they're so concerned about Epstein. That's crap. They don't care about Epstein. They're just trying to find something to smear Trump with. I was shocked that they didn't care more about the fact that they had a potential tie-in to Epstein. But they seem very protective of Epstein because I think they know how badly that pendulum swings back at Bill Clinton. The only time they started really, screaming about Epstein was when they were trying to deflect from Tulsi Gabbard's accusations against Obama and his administration, specifically their intelligence community, and how they basically they lied to the entire country. And all of a sudden they're like, Epstein, Epstein. So when they come out here screaming, Epstein, Epstein, I know it's bad faith deflection based on the timing. Because they sat back on that story for weeks, not caring about it until Obama was in the spotlight. So they're very transparent as to what they actually are thinking versus what they're trying to sell to the public, try to sell to you, and they're less likely you, more likely they're the idiots who swallow their crap. But yeah, so that lawsuit is supposed to be coming in. Imminently. What else I have here? Yeah. Obama's cook, I suspect, was Hillaried. I believe that she was Hillaried. So, and I guess this is a good one to close out with. So last week I told you that Pete Hegseth, it was last week, maybe it was 2 weeks ago. I told you that Pete Hegseth was bringing in 600 new military attorneys to become federal judges and try and expedite the process, which I thought was a brilliant idea. Brilliant idea. So obviously the left is now belly aching about that. Some Democratic senators say they are deeply concerned that a Pentagon plan to allow military lawyers to work as temporary immigration judges will violate a ban on using service members for law enforcement and affect the military justice system. What? The letter sent to the military services and provided to the Associated Press comes 2 weeks after Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth approved sending up to 600 military lawyers to the Justice Department to serve as temporary immigration judges. It's part of the steps the Trump administration has taken to use the military in broader ways than previously seen, particularly in its immigration crackdown, including sending the National Guard into American cities and deploying active duty troops to the U.S.-Mexico border. Quote, these military officers would serve under the command and control of the Attorney General and would execute administrative determinations at the direction of the Attorney General. Okay. According to a letter signed by 12 Democrats on the Senate Armed Services Committee. These actions are inherently law enforcement actions that may not be performed by members of the armed forces. We remain extremely disturbed about the impacts of readiness by using military personnel to perform what are traditionally Department of Justice functions. Yeah, because these military lawyers, they're all about fighting, right? They're all about going into the fight. They're not going to be able to be on the front lines on foreign soil if they're handling immigration. We're very concerned, very, very concerned. They're very concerned that it's a really good idea. That's all they're concerned about. The nation's immigration courts will, with a backlog of about 3.5 million cases, have become a key focus of President Trump's hardline immigration enforcement efforts. Since Trump returned to office, dozens of immigration judges have been fired, while others have resigned or taken early retirement. The senator's letter sent to the offices of top military lawyers of for the four services on Monday is asking the Pentagon to say where the roughly 600 lawyers will be coming from and for insight into what legal analysis the military has conducted into whether the move would violate the Posse Comitatus Act. That law prevents military from conducting law enforcement outside of extreme emergencies. A Pentagon memo, which I think they would classify this as an extreme emergency, but the question is whether that would withstand judicial scrutiny. So under the Posse Comitatus Act, you can't just move the military around unless there's an emergency. And Trump has had mixed success on getting the courts to accept that this is an emergency. It'll be interesting to see the Supreme Court weigh in on that. A Pentagon memo that described the plan said the lawyers should not be detailed for longer than half a year. The memo also showed that Pentagon officials were cognizant of the possibility for conflict with the law and said the Justice Department would be responsible for ensuring the military lawyers do not violate it. Democrat senators are deeply concerned. They're so concerned. Not at all political. This is just concerned. These reassignments come at a time only shortly after Congress completely overhauled how the military investigates and prosecutes serious covered criminal offenses by establishing the Office of Special Trial Counsel in each of the services. Those offices were set up by Congress in 2022 as part of an effort to reform the military justice system, moving decisions on the prosecution of serious military crimes, including sexual assault, to independent military attorneys, taking that power away from victims' commanders. The letter asked the Pentagon what it will do to preserve the OSTC's progress in building specialized trial capacity. The senators say they plan is demonstration of how the Trump administration views skilled personnel as pawns to be traded between agencies rather than as professionals essential to their core missions in order to advance misguided immigration policies. That's what it's all about. That's final sentence. That's what it's all about. You just don't like his immigration policies. The fact that you call them misguided rather than a necessity, you're only revealing. You give away the game. You give it away. You give it away. You're just giving away the game. Misguided immigration policies. Very misguided. It's very. How dare you try to remove people? Maybe one story after another of lunatics, beheadings, murders. I explained why earlier. I explained why they do what they do. I walked you through the whole virtue signaling thing. It was deep. If you missed it, I recommend you go back and check it out. It was very deep. But I broke it down because I want you all to understand the motivation for what's happening there and why it is that there's a lack of value for human life. Anyway, I urge you all to check that out. top 10 Trump move, maybe 5. It was a great move. It was a great move because you need help. They need help. If they're going to get anything done here, they really, really need the help. So there's a lot of work to get done, and you need people you can trust. And you trust the military to actually be carrying out immigration law far more than a bunch of randos who would show up and say, I volunteer as tribute, because they could be leftist lawyers who are trying to thwart your efforts to have these people removed and just come in there and just wreak havoc on our deportations. Anyway, that's my show. I am sticking to it. I'm going to be landing my plane relatively quickly because I'm feeling tired. I've been streaming now for like 5 hours today. It feels like, not quite 5, but like 4. Over 4 if you count locals today. So I'm feeling a little tired and run down. So with that, I'm going to remind you that lab meat is not meant for you. It's meant for they, them. If someone comes along and says, hey, try some of this. No, that's not your friend. They're not your friend. They don't like you. They don't care about you. They're probably just going to start virtue signaling about how great they are, because it's not meant for you. It's meant for they, them. Say, if it's so good, why don't you and yourself and your other personality eat it? But it's not meant for me. And also, do not eat the bugs. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Don't do it. Good night, you all. And as always, I say to you, thank you for joining. Godspeed.